Welcome everybody to tonight's session 0 for the Pallid Man, a Cortex primed horror mythos game, which we're going to be running tonight with some familiar faces. Hopefully you'll find that they'll all be on screen in a moment. And we want to thank the crew from Chaotic Neutral Games. Pass our respects over to Fandom Tabletop, who produced the Cortex game, and this is my first time running this live on a stream online, but it's an old favorite of mine that I've run a few times on tabletop games. So I bring to you our players tonight: Karen, Dave, Helen, and Chris, who we'll introduce now. Excellent. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi, everybody. So I think most people have met the players before, but for those that might be new tonight, could we maybe go around and just introduce each other, say who you are, how long you've been gaming, that kind of thing? Maybe some interesting fact about what you've done today. Dave's next to me, so he's first.
Okay. I am Mike's long-suffering brother. And
mutual feeling.
I have been gaming, I've been role-playing, although you might not call it that, since I was 8. My very first...
You mean make-believe?
No, my very first
he was in a
role-playing
role-playing game age 8.
Oh, okay.
My very first experience in a role-playing game ended in a brawl, a physical brawl between the players, not their characters.
It took 3 players to resolve.
I blame my dad, because he's not here and can't defend himself.
I didn't realise this was meant to be therapy.
It is. It's always therapy with me and Mike.
Sorry.
It's an intervention for Dave. It's an intervention.
Right, okay, fair enough.
Today I have not done much gaming. I have been at work, and I am still at work. So if I disappear, it's because I've been called away. I'm not breaking any laws or ruining my contract or anything right now, but I do have to be on call. So there you go.
We're going to go around clockwise. So Helen, you're up next, I'm afraid.
Oh, hello. My name's
Spotlight's
Helen.
on you.
My name's Helen. I could call myself Dave's long-suffering producer now. Wow, that's great. Adding that in. So I did a bit of D&D with my brothers, but basically they used to kill off my character very quickly, within usually the first half an hour of playing when I was younger. So I only came back to it properly. I know, brothers, hey. I came back to it properly, 2019, so 3 years ago, when I joined a local guild. And through that, I have come to do more and more roleplay. And now I'm embarrassed to say I do a lot on Chaotic Neutral. And I have got nothing interesting to say. What have I done today? I have been doing some work. I have been trying to work out different modalities of echocardiography. It's been fun.
Going around, that's Spider next.
Sounds medical.
Yes, Spider. Just been working today.
Breaking things?
I only broke a coffee
One
machine.
thing. Yeah.
It's
Only a
all
little
good.
thing. Yeah.
It just jammed slightly somehow. Yeah, I play games, multiple games, and I play in the Mage with Dylan. Wow.
Dylan, yes, hello Dylan.
Yeah. Great, we're combining.
Dave and Helen. I don't know how I managed that one.
Do not even start that, please.
Too late.
Well, I think that's great. Let's leave that there and move on. Corinne, can you tell us how long have you been gaming, and something that you did today that might be interesting?
Well, my first taste of D&D, like role playing, was when I was in Scouts, and I was like maybe 14 or something. So that is over 10 years ago now.
You're so young. You're so young.
Yes, Ellen. And then I did occasional stuff there. Then I properly got into it in 2017 when I joined Agnes Guild of Adventurers. We're now a company. Yay. And came to know Simon and then got to be part of all of this. I've been with Chaotic Ninja Games since the start, and I'm playing Eclipse of the Moon, the fantastic tabaxi, which everybody loves and nobody has any problem with at all in the Benefactor. She's
Excellent.
fantastic.
And I'm Mike. I'll be the GM for tonight and for the next few weeks. I've been gaming since my brother was about 8, apparently, and and that particular session, Dave was playing an assassin with a very simple target.
I couldn't pronounce it, so.
But you did well. You did well. You
Assassin.
knew what you had to do, and it didn't matter how many of us tried to stop you, physically stop you. You were going to kill somebody.
Dad's instructions to me, because I couldn't understand what he was saying, were kill the first guy you see. And he'd forgot that we actually got introduced to a different NPC before the one he thought was first. So I do blame
We've come a long way since then. We've come a long way since then. It now takes 4 people to restrain Dave. Okay, so we're going to be playing characters tonight. You've each been assigned one of the characters pre-gen. There are a few little decisions we're going to make with those before you actually start playing. So there's a few tidy up items on there. Dave will be playing Eugene, a private investigator. Helen's going to be playing Robin, a bereaved sibling. Corinne's going to be playing Natalie, a young cub reporter, and Spider's playing JD, a photographer. We're setting this game in the 1930s in San Francisco. It's mythos horror, and there's going to be a sort of assembling of the crew to bring you all together. So you'll all come in through different strands that lead towards the big mystery, and then hopefully you'll find reasons to work together as opposed to against each other, to try and thwart whatever evil plot / disaster / thing is going to occur. The storyline shall be leading you into that. So that should all come through. So if we take a look at each of your characters, and each character has 6 attributes. Can I pull one of these up? Let me grab that. I've got Dave's character, for instance, in front of me. So after your basic introduction, your name, career, and currently where you're staying in San Francisco, you have an attributes block. This has agility, alertness, intellect, strength, vitality, and willpower. Relatively straightforward sounding. Each one of those has a dice value assigned to it. We can swap a couple of those over if you guys want to edit those, but those dice values are a D10, 3 D8s, a 6, and a 4. A 4 being bad, a 10 being good, 12 being the absolute best dice that you get in this game. We'll be using 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12 dice, sided dice. After that, you have specialities. Again, there'll be 6 in this section. I've given each of you a key speciality that is central to your character. So I'm looking at Dave's at the moment. He's a private investigator, so he has investigate as a D10 specialty. And then there are 2 at D8, 2 at D6, 3 at D6 that will be assigned by you guys. We're going to do maybe a couple of those during this session, but we'll leave some of them open if you want to apply them during play. So the idea is that if you feel there's something your character should have some skill in, you can add those in at the time that that comes up in play. So there'll be a little bit of development of the characters we go through. Next, you have what I call coping mechanisms within this pack of Cortex Prime, but they're always called distinctions within the system. So these are the methods by which you cope with the hardships life throws at you. Dave's character has a bit too punchy as his primary first coping mechanism. He drinks to forget. What he's drinking to forget, I couldn't tell you. That's going to be down to how Dave plays the character. But he's also a good judge of character. Each of these distinctions, coping mechanism distinctions, comes in at D8, but you can swap it out for a D4 if you think that, in fact, being a bit too punchy might not apply, or maybe you've been drinking a little too much to forget and you're coming into the scene with a bladder full. You have a couple of assets. These are connections, pieces of equipment, insider knowledge, things that are unique to your character. So Dave has 2 of those. He's got a connection in the San Francisco Police Department, but also a connection within the mob. And finally, you have 4 stress dice. Currently, these are blank, but as things happen to your character that are negative, you will gain physical injuries. You may garner the police attention, depending on what actions you take. The mythos exposure, how much of the horror of this scenario you're going to be facing. And then each of you has a unique stress track for your character. Dave's is mob attention. So not only can he have too much attention from the police, potentially he could be pissing off the wrong people in the mob. That's the character sheet's contents, but at the top we also have 2 dice roller buttons. The dice pool builder. When you're doing a test in the system, you will be selecting dice from each of the sections I just described, and the dice pool builder will pull those dice together for you as you answer certain questions as we go through. That's the character sheet. So we're going to fill in some of those character sheet skills. Would anybody, having had the chance to all have a look at your sheets, are there any changes that you'd like to make in your attribute scores? The kind of what I felt made sense for your characters, but you may have a preference to swap a couple over if that's of interest. I'll go the opposite direction this time. Corinne, having looked at your character, is there anything you want to swap in your attributes section? It's kind of quiet. Too quiet.
Is that just on the... Wait, is this might just be on the pool where it says TBC?
Just the first section of your character. So this would be agility, alertness, intellect, strength, vitality, and willpower.
No, it looks that looks fine. My character, just because you said she's fairly young, how old is she?
Again, I leave that to be defined by you, but she's at least old enough to be considered possible as an employee at the paper, but you're just trying to get into, you're just trying to get a foot in the door. Okay. So you're not a fully employed member of staff.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, no, I like what's on there. I will keep it as it is.
Spider, any changes you need to make?
No, I think my attributes are all good.
I guess in general, then, I'll ask the open question: is anybody looking to change any of the stats on their character?
I'm very happy with what you picked, Mike.
Can I just downgrade my college activist to a D6, please?
Let's have a look.
My coping mechanism.
Okay, so your coping mechanisms all start at an 8. They all come in as an 8.
Oh, okay, fine.
And that's one of your. The idea is if this is something that would benefit you, you get it as the D8. If you feel that in this particular scene it would be a hindrance, you can roll it as a D4 instead.
Okay.
Part of the mechanics of the game, and we'll come to the benefits that brings to you as we go through some of the stages of actual learning the system.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So I was looking at the attributes primarily, agility through to willpower, if they were of interest to you to swap those over.
No, I think I can live with those.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about Dave's character. He's got investigate. Dave, can you suggest a second skill, maybe as a D8, that you would like to take as a specialty, as a private investigator?
I struggle with this, Mike, because of Cortex, but yeah. Okay, so would you, if you're doing if I'm doing an investigate thing, what's that going to cover? Is that going to cover all aspects of an investigation, or would would interrogation be a separate skill? Thinking.
I think that sounds like a separate skill. Yeah.
Then
if you're pressing an interrogation in a literal interviewing somebody, getting information from them in that sense, that would be something separate. Whereas investigation is more sort of scene analysis, knowing how to look for clues, knowing the kinds of things to spot. And some of that will be a casual conversation, would maybe be investigate. But if you're trying to draw information out of somebody over a prolonged interview, then that might be interrogation. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would like to, because I've played this system a lot. I would like to put that on one of the D6s.
Okay.
Because putting it on a D8 to me puts it just too close to investigate, so there's no real differentiation between the two skills. That makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So if you want to, I mean, you've already seen your edit button. I'm just checking through that everybody has access.
I can see it now. Yeah. Okay. Right, so I'm just going to change this to interrogation or interrogate. I'll just put interrogate.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, that's cool. So I don't want to mix it up too much. So we'll continue around. Corinne, would you like to suggest a secondary skill? It can be a physical skill. It could be a social skill. Your current character, Nat, has, let me pull your character sheet up there, so I'm looking at it as well. Your character sheet currently has area knowledge.
Okay.
Sort of, you've got a School of Hard Knocks street level knowledge of San Francisco, or at least the area around the neighborhood that you've grown up in. Do you have something that you would like to add your character's skills to?
I'm struggling to find. So okay, so TBC. Okay, so cab reporter. So area knowledge. So could she have contacts?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like
I can put that in for you if you want. I'm on your character sheet.
Yeah.
So is there any specific, these are more specialities. So making contacts would be the kind of thing.
Yeah, making contacts. Well, sounds good.
Right. What would that be? Is that socialize, ingratiate, charm?
Charm, maybe? Yeah, just a
Okay.
straight up charm.
Yeah, okay. I'm liking that. And put that in as a D8?
Yeah.
Okay. That's added to your sheet.
Yeah.
And again, working our way around, I'm guessing that's Spider next. Spider, you're a photographer of a mostly professional standard. We've given you photography at D10. But there are other less central skills that are involved with photography. Maybe if you're running this as a business, you're going to need some sort of sales pitch kind of skills. Maybe there are there's chemistry work involved with it, for instance.
So do those not come under photography, or is photography just the act of snapping a picture?
If you wanted to be able to use chemistry in a sense that doesn't relate directly to photography, you would want a skill for chemistry, for instance. If you're looking at business acumen for how you would negotiate a deal, that doesn't really come under the skill of being able to do photography. You'd want something that's a skill based on, your interaction with other people, sales, budgeting, that kind of thing. These are purely just throwaway suggestions. There are going to be 5 slots available for you to fill in. And at the point that you're about to do a test that you need a dice in a skill, obviously I'll give you the opportunity to suggest what skill that would be. So if you're about to do something where you need to run away very fast and you want to add a running skill, that would be a great time for you to define that your character used to be a Olympic level sprinter. We'll add that in, for instance.
Okay, so it's kind of like a flashback mechanic, essentially. We're like,
yeah,
I'm able to do this.
Sorry, unless you said it, Mike. How many of them do you want to keep back? Is it we're going to fill in a few and then?
I'm just for tonight. I'm just going to fill in 1 each. Right.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're killing a lot of time with just selecting skills. But we're also going to do a few exercises in actually rolling dice for a few tests. And if during one of those you wanted to come up with a character skill, I'm quite happy for you to add them in at that point as well. So even if we aren't doing them right at this stage, by the end of the night, maybe you'll be adding a couple more in.
Okay.
Sorry, anyway, back to Spider. Bought you a little bit more thinking time.
Yes. The problem I have is whenever you give me this sort of picture, I just want to say, I want a femme fatale.
Well, go for
Then
femme
go
fatale,
with
then.
that.
I will go
What
with a
skill?
femme fatale.
Then what skill do you want to put in it? I'm going to guess a D8.
I'm thinking either manipulation or seduction.
Both of those are strong skills. I leave you to decide which, as they're going to take this story in slightly different directions, but
You can seduce the monster.
Oh God, no! I'm not making a bard. Yeah, I'll go seduction. It'll be fun.
okay.
Possibly.
Do you have the editor open? Do you want me to drop that in for you?
Seduce the fishman.
I think you've just opened it. Oh wait.
Yeah.
I'm getting
So
mixed up.
sorry.
The things are on the wrong place.
Did you say you
That's
wanted
not how it's
seduction?
spelled.
Just to be sure I heard that right, yeah?
Yes. I've put it in, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we bought Helen all the thinking time we could. Helen, your character is Robin Bourne. Your pathway into this is that you have a deceased brother that whose estate you're kind of going to be dealing with. So your skill set is probably the widest open. You're coming in as a student. I've given you a research skill to begin with, just because you're studying and you have that sort of library use skill that's always useful in any Cthulhu-based game. But maybe this is the opportunity for you to suggest what your major would be. What is your major area of study for your character?
First of all, I'm not sure I know what sort of period are we set in?
Sorry, 1930s. 1930s.
Ooh, 1930s. Female...
Which country?
Yes.
San Francisco, America.
America, okay.
Right. 1930s.
Right in the Great Depression.
San Francisco,
that kind of period.
America.
If I remember right, the time frame that we're working with, the alcohol is legal again.
Yeah.
Prohibition is not on at the minute, is that right?
That's what I'm thinking.
Sure about that.
We will look into those numbers before the first session, before session 1.
So I think,
or maybe somebody in chat will comment on that.
Yeah, what if it's 1930 exactly? Then we're still in Prohibition. 1930s. Some of the 30s are out of Prohibition.
Well, we don't. 1930s somewhere.
Yeah.
I think I am going to be. I'm thinking it has to be sort of slightly artsy, so like art history, maybe. Oh, hold on, Helen, that's a bad idea. You might have to know things about that. We'll go art history. I've just seen what my brother does as well. What my brother's.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. So that's going to give you a good, strong case for understanding the sale of his paintings and things.
Yeah.
So let's get that in there. Art history. Do you want that as an 8, or do you want that as a lower skill that you're learning?
I'll have it as a lower skill that I'm learning, please. More to reflect my abilities rather than necessarily my
Fair enough. Well, that's one of the 6s then. So I'll pop that into the first of the 6s.
Thank you.
Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So that was the basis of character creation in this instance. We're just doing a little bit of changes to your characters. So let me just go through some of the system itself. So as I mentioned in passing, the Cortex Prime system uses dice pools, and this is a roll X keep 2 system. Effectively, there are exceptions. You will take 1 dice from every section of your character sheet and some other sources as well. Put them into a dice pool, roll all of them, and then keep 2, adding those together to get your result. That needs to beat the difficulty that has been set. You also keep a 3rd dice, and that one is used to measure the effect that you've had in your dice roll. So let's compare this to D&D, for instance. Your rolling to hit is your result. The effect dice is how much damage you would be doing. You would take 2 dice, add them together, that's your to hit roll. You would keep a dice size from the other dice in your pool, and it's the size of the dice that defines the effect, and that would therefore show you how much damage you've done. How does that work? So that effect dice gets applied as a stress, for instance. So if somebody's attacking you, goblin rushes up to attack the wizard, the goblin stabs with the knife. We roll the goblin's dice pool to see if that attack hits. We keep 2 dice as the result to see if it beats the difficulty to hit you. And then they keep 1 of their other dice, let's say a D6, as their effect. They've now done you a D6 physical injury dice, and that would get added to your stress. If we can get a dice of stress up to 12, then your character is in serious difficulty and will very possibly be taken out of the scene, whether that's unconscious, dead, shamed to the degree that you had to flee from polite society, arrested by the police, or gibbering in a corner from mythos exposure. Each of these is a different form of being taken out of the scene. But progression past a D12, D12 then higher. D12 is bad, but getting more stress after you've got a D12 takes you out of the scene. So that is keep 2 as your result, adding them together to see if you beat the difficulty, and then keep a dice as your effect for when you're applying stress or other effects to the game. So if you're attacking the goblin back, yeah, you're going to try and do it physical damage. If you're trying to frame somebody with the police, you're going to be applying it to the police attention stress. If you wanted to affect something in a positive way, then you would use your effect dice to create an asset. An asset you already have on your character sheet. So for instance, I'm looking at Robin Bourne, this is Helen's character, and she has a contact, which is Warren Palmer, her brother's art agent, and that's a D8 asset. So you can have assets that are contacts, and that's kind of why I steered Corinne away from having contacts as a skill, because you would have contacts as actual people assets. But you also have charisma. As opposed to charm, this is an asset. You just ooze charisma all the time, right? You've always got charisma and can add it on top of some of your skills, Helen. If you were to make a dice roll, and we're going to do some examples of this shortly, if you were to do a dice roll trying to make a new contact, say for instance, you want to be able to talk to somebody in the bank, you know somebody that works at the bank, Helen, right? Then you would say, okay, I'm going to do a quick dice roll to see if I can produce a good contact there, and I'll use my effect dice to define how good of a contact that is. Then you'd have a new asset, my contact at the bank, and you tell me what their name is. I'd make a note of that for you, add it to your character sheet. Or if it's just going to be one that you're going to just use and then dispose of, we'll just put it on the desktop of the virtual table and possibly come back to it if we need to at a later point. So that's dice rolling. Gather a pool. There might be some dice available outside of your character sheet, but mainly it's 1 dice from each section of your character sheet. You'll have a difficulty assigned to you. So I'll usually roll 2 dice to set the difficulty and then add in any other dice that are true to the scene. It's a roll X, keep 2 system. You're looking to beat the result, beat the target with your result. And you keep an additional dice to measure the effectiveness of your efforts. There are also... Go on, sorry. Any questions?
Yeah. Sorry, Mike. So it doesn't
please.
matter what we roll on the kept dice. It's just the size of the dice.
Just the size of the dice that's important.
Okay. So that is all that's important. Okay. And then we can choose whichever of the dice we want to keep and which one. Okay. Lovely.
So
Got
when
that.
you're actually looking at your dice pool, we'll do an example of this in a moment, and that'll show up
Yeah.
on the conversation box that Simon will
Okay.
be bringing up, no doubt, momentarily. When we do a sample of this, you'll be looking at. Sorry, 1 second. I have an interruption on this side. Come here.
Oh.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Amelia.
Hello,
She will
Amelia.
not be playing in today's game, but she will interrupt it just for a minute before she goes to bed.
I'm not going to bed.
You are going to bed. Maybe not this minute, but you are going to bed at some point, aren't you?
I'm drawing the Elmer.
You're drawing Elmer some colouring. Excellent. I'll let you get back to that then, because I don't think Mum knew you got all the way up here. Close the door behind you, please. Yes, yeah. You're going to show that, are you, before you go?
Oh yes, it's very good.
Very good, Amelia. They love it. Please leave the room and close the door, darling. I'll be right back. I'm going to just escort her out of the room. Come on, darling. Back downstairs. There you go. Thank you very much. They all think you're cute.
Everything has been achieved.
Aha. Right. Here we are again. Okay. Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you for admitting that she is lovely. She is. I had a checklist right here so that if that happened, I wouldn't lose where we were. Yes, so we've just covered the dice rolls. Helen asked a very useful question of when you're looking at your effect, it's just the size of the dice. Correct. So when you're actually looking at the pool that you've rolled, you can select tactically, making a decision to keep dice that aren't necessarily the strongest, so that the effect dice is the strongest available. So you've got that freedom to choose. It's not just keep the two best, it's to keep the two that you choose to keep. And I say it's generally a keep two because there is a mechanic in the system that lets you keep more, and that's using plot points. So there's a, yes, let's deal out the first plot point to everybody. I'm going to give everyone one card from a deck I have here. All players, and that includes Simon.
Yes,
every time I
yes.
look, every time I look at the Zoom call, I've got this still of Simon glaring back at me. It's very open. I love it, but oh my lord, it's like it's too serious. Right, okay. Everybody now has a copy of the card for plot points. And this is just the first plot point, and it's got a little bit of text on it for you. So if I drag that, can I drag those into chat? No, it's not going to work, is it? Okay. So the card lists what you can do, and there's a less spooky version. This is a Necronomicon style page filled with notes about what you can or can't do with plot points. You can use them to add an extra dice to your result. So you would normally keep two, but you can spend a plot point to keep extra. Each extra dice you want to add into the result costs you another plot point. You can spend a plot point to keep an extra effect dice. So you could have two effects from one attack. Dual attack, maybe create two assets, describe that you're trying to outdistance somebody or move through multiple locations. Each effect dice could say, that's the amount of effort I'm putting in to actually make it through to the next room in a chase or in a timed effect. You're trying to explore an entire area in a limited number of turns.
Can I ask a question? Can you use that to put both effects on one target and step it up? Yes,
certainly can. So you can make larger impacts of stress by spending plot points to keep more effect dice and then apply it, and then you can where do we get to create an asset just by spending a plot point, but you will only get that as a d6. But so you can, as I described before, you can do a test to create an asset at a dice size out of your dice pool, which could be bigger than a d6. But there's a risk you might not pass that test. You might fail to make the asset. Or you can just spend a plot point and create a d6 asset. You can spend a plot point to bring back an earlier asset that was created in an earlier scene, as assets only last until the end of the scene. And you can spend a plot point at the end of a scene to step down one of your stress that you have. only one plot point to only step down one of your stress. So if you've taken stress across multiple areas or lots of stress in one area, you're not going to be getting rid of it all. But basically means you had a breather at the end of the scene. You got a chance to maybe set your mind straight or slap a band-aid on that scratch from the highly infectious zombie you were just fighting. Those are the spending limits. There's also a little bit of flavor text at the bottom, which is a system-specific warning for plot points. I'll read the flavor text. Holding on to the power that shapes reality, engulfs the mind and fractures the senses. Those who hoard power will face consequences. Quick use of these secrets may afford some comfort, if one is not to lose their grasp on sanity. The lure of mythos will appeal, but its luster of wisdom is a facade. The truth shall make you afeared. You will pray for the deceptions of ignorance. And to decipher that, don't hold on to plot points, spend them, because at the end of each scene, the player with the most plot points sets the difficulty for everybody else to pass a mythos check.
Hoard them all.
So don't be in scenes with Dave, because Dave's going to hoard all of his plot points. No, so basically, the more plot points you hoard, the harder it's going to be at the end of the scene to resist mythos. And then mythos stress will be added to your character.
What's wrong with reading every book?
Spending plot points will make scenes easier anyway, but how do you get them? You all start, as you've seen, with one plot point. You'll get more plot points during the play when you hinder one of your distinctions. So if you take a D8 on distinctions, it's helping you. But if you go for the D4 option, you earn another plot point. And as you've seen, plot points have a number of uses, and there are a few that will unlock as we play. So plot points are good to have, but don't hold on to them. You will also get plot points if you roll a 1 on any of your dice. Because something we didn't talk about is what happens when you roll bad. If you roll 1s, you have to ignore the dice that 1 comes up on. You can't add it to your total, and you can't use it as your effect. And I'll pay you a plot point to add a dice of that size into my pool. My pool of dice is called the Doom pool. And as you do things bad during game, the Doom pool gets bigger. And then I use those dice to spend on things. Now, I've added some handouts with basic rules. So the rules in there will be covering how you do tests, what tests are, how you pull dice pools together, but also what I can do with these dice. It's things like I can interrupt the initiative to give the bad guys an extra turn, right? By spending dice out of the Doom pool. I can make tests more difficult by spending dice out of the Doom pool. So you'll get 2 dice for difficulty, and then I might spend something in the Doom pool to add another dice into that. So when you roll 1, so we had some test rolls earlier, and the last one was Helen rolling as Robin attempts to do something, and she rolled her intelligence, and she rolled her distinction, which helped, but she rolled a D10 intelligence and rolled a 1 on it. I'd be very tempted to have that D10. I like that. That's a great dice. I want that off of you, and I'll give you a plot point and buy that 1 and put it into my Doom pool to use later. So the more times people roll 1s, the worse it gets for you later in games.
So don't
Should you
roll
ever
a
roll
D4, because then it's a 1 in 4 chance to get a...
Yeah, but D4s aren't going to be that bad when I roll them back at you. But this is the flip side. If I roll a 1, and I should almost always roll before you do. If I roll a 1, spend a plot point, buy that dice and add it into your dice pool for that test. So you can buy my bad rolls, my opportunities as they are called. You can buy those for a one-off use in your test as an advantage. So as we were looking on the character sheet, you've got 2 buttons. The first is the dice pool builder, and that lets you pick dice from your character sheet. The second one allows you to add other dice from other sources. So just tell me what that dice was when you choose to use it. And then if you've got to spend a plot point to buy it from me, spend the plot point, discard the card from your hand, and you'll end up with that extra dice in your dice pool. These are a few things that the plot points do. There are other ways that you might earn them. Good role playing would be a good sign, but I might miss that. So if somebody says, "Oh, Dave did something cool,"
never going to happen.
I know it's unlikely, but if somebody says
Yeah.
I'll listen and we'll hand out plot points. There is a pile of plot points on the table for people to sort of grab and drag into their dice pool if they want to. So,
do
by all
we
means,
have to sell you are poor dice.
So I choose,
Oh,
and you can always say I don't want the plot point, but I would advise you take them. You can always. What is your concern, Helen? Is it that I
Well,
might
like-
have too many?
yes. Like if I roll a 1 on a d10, for instance, and you go, I will buy that, and I go, no, I will not sell it. Do you have to stick to that, or can you still take it?
Well, I feel that I should warn you, you have little control in this game when it comes to how big a problem the Doom pool will be. But at the same time, I'm not going to be malicious about it. Okay, I'm not looking to have an enormous Doom pool. So if things are going to, I get an interruption again. If things are going to ramp up too much, I'll be looking at the Doom pool and going, I don't need to buy that. I'll forgive you. I will forgive you.
Does she have a sword?
This one instance of rolling a d12 and almost giving me ultimate power.
Yeah.
But there will be, I will buy smaller dice primarily first and gradually build things up as the plot goes through. Plot points will evaporate at the end of a session. Next session, you'll start with just one. So don't hoard them all the way through the game because you're going to lose them at the end anyway.
I might need them.
And the Doom pool.
I need them.
The Doom pool. Yes, the Doom pool will.
Oh, that's dramatic. That's what happens. I think what happened there was the Doom pool got too big, and the Doom pool caused the yeah. It was basically like Doom pool needs to change. I mean, we probably should just continue talking. So, are we meant to be working?
I think.
Oh, okay.
But keep going. Keep going. Tell you what, it's coming up for 9 o'clock, guys. I know it's only effectively been an hour, but this was kind of when I was expecting us to take a short break. It would be a good time, as I think it is now Amelia's bedtime. So if I take a short break now, should we say 15 minutes? Is that okay, everyone?
Perfect.
Cool. And we'll come back to this in a moment. And by then I'll have figured out why my video isn't working at the minute.
Oh, I thought it was you turned it off.
I'm gonna.
My video's not working, so they can't see you, Amelia.
Yeah, I'm gonna go and make sure stuff here is settled down. Back in a minute.
We'll go on a short break.
See you in 15.
Simon.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for the break. Sorry about that slight tech issue as I lost video. I can't imagine what it was. Some 4-year-old problem that I absolutely adore and love.
I mean, it was a mythos event, wasn't it? So,
it was clearly some sort of eldritch force that was reaching out and pressing buttons that they shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back, everybody. So we're going to just field a couple more questions from the players, and then we're going to start looking at some individual tests, test scenes, maybe get a little bit of character from the way that we play those out, but also test the actual process of rolling dice. Then we're going to do a little bit of maybe teamwork, as if these guys had already met, and then play out a few more of the options that are within the game system. Finishing with a mythos check, just to see if anybody goes gribbly insane, and then kind of wrap up by 11 is my intention, but it may be earlier, it may be just over the edge. But we've been talking about edge far too much tonight already. And that's a dig at Dave, in case anybody needs a pointer. Okay, so Helen, did you have a question, or Spider, was it? Somebody had a question?
I had a question. So you've given me a lot of inspirations for how I might affect other players with my actions in good and bad ways. Are we meant to be working together as a team?
So yeah, I mean, the way that the story's built, you are going to be on separate strands at first. They should all converge together. And at that point, there will be inter-character dynamics that you guys need to work out. And you may not all see eye to eye, but it's in the interests of all involved to not see the world end. So I'm guessing that you'll have some reason to work together.
Yes.
I'm not saying that this is necessarily a world-ending plot I have in mind, but that's the kind of level of threat that I'm going to be laying on the table. And maybe you're the last hope humanity has, or at least San Francisco.
Yeah, so working together is advised.
I've run this game at least 5 times, I'd guess. This may be the 6th. Of those, there have been varying levels of success and only one instance of absolute failure. And that was because of the 3 players involved, only one of them actually tried to stop it. The other 2 were distracted. Dave may remember Rob. I'm sure that Simon does. Rob was the one left alone looking after the job. There was a second mystery that was involved, and Rick and Kelly were pursuing that. And so Rob was left to his own devices to try and fix this, and failed, and San Francisco paid the price. But all other instances of this game have seen to it that it was all fine and dandy. Oh yeah, completely fine and dandy.
It's all fine.
Any other questions?
Okay. No, I don't think so.
Take your silence as a confession of guilt. Okay, well, we'll begin with Helen playing Robin. Helen, Robin's been in communication with her brother's agent, Warren Palmer.
Yeah.
Who has arranged for an auction of his final paintings. He's promising you a healthy percentage of those sales as the I don't know the status of your parents. That's something that I'm quite happy to leave to you to decide. But he is saying that you've been earmarked as the final beneficiary in any will or testament that came from your brother. But he passed on correspondence from your brother's landlord, and the rent on his room is coming to an end, and he wants you to come and collect any belongings. You're not arriving in San Francisco for a short while, and will be arriving there this week. You're going to need to arrange for him to store those objects for a little longer until you can get there with some help to pick them up. So you need to correspond with the landlord at your brother's apartment building, to have him store those belongings until such a time that you can get there. And that's what I was hoping we could role play and then test out as your character's interaction. Each of the character sheets in the original notes page has a table of the week that we are playing. There is already one appointment on your note, which is the auction at which your brother's paintings will be for sale. And with that as a sort of anchor point, that's when you will definitely be in town for that. So bouts after that, you will be available to come and collect the items, is what you're now negotiating. And we will role play that out to a degree. And based on how well your dice roll goes, we'll see how that is. So what I'm going to do up front, and I won't do this every time, but up front, I'm going to load up the difficulty dice for this roll. Just give me a second, as we were doing some tests beforehand. So my dice roll is a little bit askew. I should have set this up during the break, but hindsight is all 20.
So when I am doing my dice pool building and it says, what are you trying to achieve? Is that my difficulty?
So what are you trying to achieve? You would describe it just for the screen more than anything, what your character is trying to do.
Okay.
So it's going to be, if you look at the results that you rolled previously on that chat, it says Robin Bourne attempts to, and then inserted the text that you put in. So it's a good way for us to be able to track back later, go through the chat and look at what it was you rolled, why you rolled it, that kind of thing.
Okay. Nice. All right. So I am trying to negotiate collecting my brother's things from his landlord. I apologise for my tip-tappy keyboard, by the way, people.
Sure, I am similarly tap-tapping away. Okay. So I'm going to preload, I'm going to load up for you the difficulty. So I'm just going to make it nice and simple. All I'm doing is rolling, except I've named it long roll still. It's still on test mode, sorry. Yeah. So I'm going to re-roll that just because I want it to be as crisp as we can make it. Oh, even easier for you they are. So I take, just as you guys do, I take 2 dice from my pool. In this instance, I only have 2. Add those together. That becomes your difficulty target that you've got to beat. 4.
Okay.
You now produce the dice pool that you want. So you've already typed in what it is you're attempting to do.
Yep.
And then you would go through your character sheet stats to select which of the things you've got that work towards.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with intelligence. So I'm working on negotiating. So I'm going to go with my intelligence, well, my intellect, I guess. I don't have a relevant specialty at the moment. Do I have? So the next one is, does your distinction help or hinder? Now, what exactly does that mean?
So if it helps, you get to roll a d8. If you want to take the hinder, then you roll a d4, and it will adjust that for you. So have you got a distinction that would work in your favor or against you?
Yeah. So if you roll a d4, you will also get a plot point.
That also happens, yes.
I'm going to go, though, with... I'm fragile but fierce, and I feel that I might be able to use that. So I'm going to use it as a help.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a relevant asset? I have charisma.
Sure.
So
and I'm sure that shows just as much through your penmanship as it does through your in-person negotiation.
Yes. Yes. Of course. I'm a brilliant writer. Okay. And does my target have any stress?
Whilst they may have many daily stresses, at this time, this character is not stressed in any applicable sense.
Okay, so that's a no. And I have submitted. So there we go.
Okay. Robin Bourne attempts to negotiate collecting my brother's things from his landlord. You have a 3 on intelligence. You have a 6 on your distinction, which has helped. And you have a 3 on your asset, which was your charisma. You can choose 2 of these to add together to try and beat my total, and any 2 of them will do that. And then you keep 1 of them as your effect to measure roughly the asset of what you benefit from this negotiation, or to apply stress to the character so that it rests on them for future use. So you can assign any of those dice as the stress effect on the character that you're negotiating with.
And I just tell you what I'm doing, yeah? I don't need to do anything.
So now, so I mean, we would role play this out a little bit as well. So you've already rolled the dice, but you can see now the scale at which, the scope at which your efforts are working. So use that if you need to in this order. So you've seen the dice then, or role
Yes.
play it and then see the dice, to narrate, to add to the narration for you what it is you
Okay.
benefit from.
So, dear sir, I am the sister of, I don't actually know my brother's name.
Ernest Bourne. We have that
Thank you.
on file. Ernest.
Ernest, thank you. Who is that? Of Ernest Bourne. And I understand that his lease on his apartment has now come to an end. I am traveling to San Francisco, but unfortunately, I will not be there before the paid for lease expires. I would be terribly grateful if you would be kind enough to delay removal of any items or leasing of said apartment until I can arrive with, to collect his items, which would be from the 5th of June at your convenience. I would be so grateful of any help that you might offer. If you wish to contact me quicker, this is how you can get hold of me, and presumably that will be some sort of telegram.
So you on your character sheet, it states where it is that you'll be residing. At the top of your sheet, you've got so you can actually say, and I will be available at this location if should you need to contact me.
Yes, indeed, and I will do that. So I will be available to be contacted in San Francisco at the YWCA 620 Sutter from the Wednesday the 5th, 6th.
Okay,
6th.
And with the, so let's examine your dice roll for a second and actually work that through.
Yeah.
So I rolled a 4 and you have available to you 3 dice. Which of those are you going to keep for your result?
So I am going to hold the D10 as the effect dice.
Yep.
And so I'm going to use the D8 and the D6 for my actual result.
So you get a total of 9.
Yes.
When you have a result that is 5 or higher than the target, you get what's called a heroic result.
Yay!
Heroic results step up your effect dice by 1 level per every 5 points above what you're aiming for. So by doing it this way round, you have 9, which is 5 higher than 4. I'm doing the maths for everybody. I'm aiming low. I think we're all probably on the same level here. That means that your D10 effect dice goes up to a D12. D12, basically the best kind of result you're going to get. So with that in mind, you're saying that you're available as of the 6th. I would say that you could probably push him back to the Saturday. He'll hold the stuff until then. And that means that you could effectively, as soon as you've got somebody that could come and help you shift the boxes, you can have any time up until Saturday. I think I'll at least be awkward enough to say no later than Saturday lunchtime.
That's fine.
So in his correspondence back, you hear back from Boyd Lindsay, the landlord at the apartment block. Thank you for your very informative correspondence. As the situation stands, I have no other interested parties in the room until the following Monday. Therefore, so long as you have everything vacating the property by midday Saturday, that allows me time to prepare the room for new tenants. Obviously, the earlier you can facilitate this, the better. Once you've arrived in San Francisco, and safe journey, please. Once you've arrived in San Francisco, do feel free to drop by at your earliest convenience to collect your brother's belongings. I already wrote out the comment that I was going to drop in on that. So if you're okay, I'll add that in for you, as it has all the details. And I will drop that into the Saturday slot, Saturday the 9th. It includes the address, the name of the house, building,
Lovely.
I'll put before midday. Excellent. So you should see that on your screen now. Or when you look at it, you should see it on your screen.
Right.
Okay, so that was Robin's interaction by post. Next on my list, I have Harvey. So JD Harvey, the photographer, has regular business with the local newspaper, the Call Bulletin. The Call Bulletin, just to be clear. And I believe we have a contact on your character sheet that is a reporter you've done work for before. So JD, your reporter contact is Craig Hartig. You have provided photos for Craig on a number of jobs over the last month, and he's put in expense requests with the accounting department at the newspaper, and they have yet to pay. How would you like to deal with that? Now that's a multi-level question. Maybe it's you have bills to pay yourself and you need to find a way to make ends meet. Maybe it's you want to get down to the office right this moment and sort this out. Maybe you have other ways to deal with this. So I'll leave that in your hands to decide the path you want to take. But there's a payment waiting to be made and it's leaving you short of cash. Spider, how does JD deal with that?
She goes out with her camera, heads to the office, but takes a couple of shots as she goes. She's not too worried. She can take care of the money. She can make sure that she knows she can get the money out of these people. And she wanders in and has a chat with them to see what's going on, essentially.
Okay. So you come face to face with one of the clerks. And let's see. Oh, I'm trying to move things around on my screen, sorry. So I can actually get some details up. You find a young guy called McCade. He's got a little brass plaque on his desk. He seems very pleased with his position and he's very certain that he's got authority right where he is. Yes, lady, how can I help?
Oh, don't mind me.
Sorry. Hi. Yes. I did some work for you guys, got some pictures done for you, and well, it seems that I've not been paid yet for my services. I was just wondering what's going on. I pick up the plaque and just kind of look at it.
He taps with his fingers to press it back to the table and asks who it was that would have put the request in for the payment.
I'd assume that would be my contact, Craig.
Yes.
Yes.
He
I'd relay that.
Rifles through some papers in his in tray, and by the time he gets to the bottom of the pile and pulls something out, he's looking at something and goes, Hartig, right? Okay. Now, Mike's understanding of the 1930s economy may not be crystal clear to the point where I could speak directly to how much you would be charging for this. So we will use a narrative loose sum of it's an impressive amount of money for the amount of photos you've done or that kind of thing. But maybe that's part of what we get out of the dice roll. Maybe the effect dice kind of will dictate what that payment would be. So could we, I'm going to roll the dice for the difficulty here. And I'm stepping up the difficulty just so that we get examples of different difficulty levels that are coming in and how they work. and not particularly well, is what I've just discovered. So I have rolled a challenging difficulty, and this is one of the things that Dave will smirk about. The difficulty system in Cortex is very fluid, and it can throw a wobbler. So you've only got to beat a 3 to convince this sniveling little desk clerk to pay up. And he also has the paperwork in front of him and is therefore presenting you with an opportunity to prove that he needs to pay you. And that opportunity is represented by the fact I've rolled a dice, I've rolled a 1. You can pay a plot point to buy that D8 and add it into your dice roll, should you choose to. But you look at the amount that I've rolled a 3. The likelihood here is that you'll very probably beat that unless you roll very, very badly yourself.
You've not seen how badly I roll in this.
It's true. This is a new experience for me.
Roll20.
I've not seen you roll dice before. It could be almost as embarrassing as what I just rolled. But
it is a dice roller and not your actual dice, so there is a slight chance it will be better.
Yes.
That's not how it works, Helen.
Just saying.
Okay.
So if you want to buy that dice, let's start with that first, right? If you want to buy that dice, take your plot point card, take it out of your hand and just drop it onto the desk and then delete it. And that will send it to the discard pile. If you want to do that.
So like the one that I tried out earlier or the one that you put out?
So if you see your name at the bottom of the screen, you've got a 1 plot point card in your hand, click on that, it'll pop up a little
did I take the wrong thing out? Oops.
Maybe, but I'm not concerned.
Okay.
And then drop that to the desktop of the VTT and delete.
Go on, there we go.
Cool. So that lets you then roll the opportunity dice. So at the top of your character sheet, you have a roll additional dice button.
Yep.
Use that. Call it paperwork, for instance, or docket or receipt or whatever.
Would this
the dice size is a D8.
Would this be?
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I'm just trying to. What kind of dice roll it would be?
So this is an opportunity, if that's the first question. And the dice size will be a D8. And you can give it any name you choose, but this is the paperwork that the sniveling clerk has in hand.
An 8, you said. There we go.
D8.
Let's see.
And then on your other button, go through and roll the remaining dice that you would choose from your character sheet, and then that'll probably. Already, I mean, that in itself is going to be enough to beat it. But what we're looking for here is the complete dice pool. And then you'll keep 2 dice as your result to beat my 3, which is not going to be a challenge.
Attribute would this be? Intelligence?
Okay. You could be using your intelligence. You may have, you might have been using your alertness to spot the paperwork and guide him to it. You could be applying willpower maybe to be bolshy enough to control the situation. This is a very narrative system, and so long as it's justifiable, the attribute you choose to use applies.
I'll go with alertness.
In general, good role players don't then game the system and just play the best one. But yeah, no, I mean, you can't. Sorry, I'm assuming this has showed up on other people's screens before it did mine.
Do you have a relevant speciality? No? Yes.
At this point, we've not filled them all in, but the photography, this is what I was saying, you might at some point want a skill that's based on your business acumen, your sales pitch, or that kind of thing. So if you wanted to define one of those now, just say what size dice it's going to be, the 8 or the 6, and we'll roll it now, and then we'll just put it on your character sheet in a minute. Or you can just say, no, you don't have a specialty at this point.
See, I was trying to use my seductiveness but I personally am not very seductive.
My character is. I'm not.
Yes.
Lies.
In the same way that I'm not necessarily that intelligent, I would allow people to use dice to make up for the fact that they aren't necessarily everything their character could be.
I mean, I've already passed, I'm pretty sure, so I'm just gonna. Oh my god, do I have? Can I leave it as help?
So which of your distinctions
Help.
help?
Help.
So you have fixate on the details, you have an expensive hobby, and you also have a photographic memory.
Photographic
could,
memory.
Photographic memory. So you remember the paperwork, and that's what helped you to find it so quickly.
Yes.
So yes, you have one that helps. And do you have any assets that help? Yes, your contact, Craig, which is a D6 asset.
Does your target have any stress?
Again, he's stressed by his day job, but that unfortunately isn't going to give you any extra dice.
Wait, equipment damage?
So you have 4 stress tracks for your own character. One
Oh,
of
is
yours,
this his
the u-
character?
Your
yeah,
character.
your unique stress track that nobody else has to deal with is equipment damage. Because if your photography equipment gets damaged, that's important to you. But nobody else actually has that one. Everybody else has the mythos, the police, and the physical stress.
I rolled amazingly.
That's a terrible dice roll. So
I got 3 ones. I'm amazing.
3 ones. If you get all
ones.
ones, it's called a botch, and some really bad stuff happens. The worst thing that happens here is I pay you some plot points. So I am going to deal you 3 plot points. Now, there are hacks within the system that allow the GM to pay 1 plot point to get all the dice. That's broken, if you ask me. But don't tell the guys that designed the game that I think that. So I'm going to be passing you 3 cards. Hopefully I've just sent the right ones.
Does this mean I get to hoard all the cards?
So you have 3 cards at this stage, yes. And you'll note, as I was specifying, if you look at your hand now, you've got 3 completely different cards.
Yeah.
And they're all gribbly, horrible Necronomicon type cards.
Don't say that, they're beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I forget, you are quite the fan of these, aren't you? So I have bought a 2d6 and a d8 to add to the plot, the Doom pool. The Doom pool has got dice in it already, but I will now add 2d6 and what did I say, a d8 to the Doom pool, and let's have a look what's in there now. So the Doom pool contains 6d6, a d8, and not a d12. Didn't notice that was still in the system, sorry. There. 6d6 and a d8, which I'll be able to use to increase difficulty dice. So I would have loved to have spent some on that previous test there, just so I didn't have a 3. But I'm keeping it straightforward in the system at the minute. So yeah, no, you did well. So you succeed because let's take a look at your dice. You have got a 5 and a 7, 13. That's 10 more than my meager 3. But you have no dice you can keep for an effect. So what happens in that? This is why I love having great opportunities to show what the system does. Okay, you have no effect dice. So the game is gracious and gifts you a effect dice as a D4. So you have succeeded in making him pay, but a D4 effect would be pretty weak and not exactly a huge payout. But you have beaten my value by 10, which is 2 steps up. So your D4 gets turned into a D6, into a D8. So you end up with a D8 asset of paid for photos or cash payment for work done. And that would be an asset that you could use in future tests, Spider, to pay bribes or buy equipment or use to replace broken equipment should your equipment get damaged in later scenes.
Okay.
Or you could just make the guy's life hell and give him a D8's worth of stress for not doing his job properly. So there are other ways that could work out. But yeah, so that's the way that system works. So you've got a free effect dice of a D4, which isn't great, but because of your good result, it got stepped up all the way to a D8. Okay, that's the photography test.
Even
Next
though
on
she
my list
rolled
is
3 ones, she succeeded.
sorry.
Even though she rolled 3 ones, she succeeded in the end there.
Yes. So she had a 5 from the paperwork dice.
Yeah.
She had a 7 from her alertness, which added together is 13. It's 12. I can do the math.
See that? That means
Yeah.
there's less for me.
It's less, so it would only be a D6. It would only be a D6, but I'm not going to quibble because these are all tests that we're doing, just examples. Yeah. So yes, she rolled 3 ones, and it benefited the Doom pool probably more than it benefited the players. But you got an asset out of it in this example. I'm going to move across to Dave's character, Eugene. Eugene is at his regular bar hangouts. And as with the payment for the photos, this is a financial issue. There's a bar tab to pay.
Okay.
Oh, no. This is your bar tab.
Are you, and I leave this open to you as to how you want it. In fact, I'm not even going to define the parameters this time, Dave. Right? What approach do you want to take to this bar tab that's hanging over your head?
I mean, how serious? Well, yeah, you've not put there's no dice to it. I mean,
well, as
what
before,
what difficulty you give me the difficulty roll.
Up.
How's that?
As before, I will demonstrate the difficulty. I wouldn't normally do this
before
you. Normally, it would be let's do the role play
and the. It's got a D8. You're itching to use it. Put it on. Put it
on. I will put in 2 of the D6s from the Doom pool.
Okay. I want you to do this because it then demonstrates to the new players why adding dice to the Doom pool is bad. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hit me with the worst you can do to show them what situation we're in now. Yeah.
Well, I could do lots. I'm not going to do lots.
You can do it.
I'm going to save some of these dice because I want to do bad things later, Dave.
I just want to blow his load early.
Damn it! Trying to tank it all for you guys.
Okay. So this is me spending 2 of the dice from the Doom pool to increase the difficulty, and I've stepped up the difficulty to hard for this test for Dave. So it was 2 D10s plus I'm adding in dice from the Doom pool, 2 D6s. And when I use those, they are removed from the Doom pool. So the Doom pool only now has 4 D6s in it.
Okay.
And a D8 still. But
now you still only keep 2 there, don't you? Is that not?
I still only keep 2. So I will be keeping the 2 larger ones.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at a total of 11 for Dave to beat. So it's now a more significant challenge.
I'm going to spend my plot point.
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to spend my plot point to take the D6 off you.
Okay. Then I'll suggest that you are a regular, and that works in your favor.
That's basically what I was thinking. It's like, I'll pay you next week. You know me, I'm good for it. Not really good for it, but
yeah, no, they've known you a while. They know you're not good for it, but
I'm charming. Everybody likes me. Well, no, maybe not. I don't know.
I mean, that's the drunken delusions of a rambling drunk, isn't it? I'm charming, everybody loves me.
Yeah, it turns out that might not be the case. So it sounds to me, Dave, like you're trying to get out of paying your bar tab.
Yeah, so
or at least postpone payment.
I think I'm gonna use intellect and I mean, I don't have much in the way of specialties that I can do here, but
I think that a good specialty for your character would be something like fast talk.
Yeah, I was thinking something along those lines. So go on then. I'll add in fast talk as a D8 if that's all right.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Add that in after we make the roll if you want.
So hang on, right. So I'm putting a thing together. So roll extra dice, opportunity. So that's it. It's like last night all over again. Right. What am I trying to achieve? So I'm going to put in right. So what I'm trying to achieve here is not to pay the bar tab, but to defer the bar tab.
Yeah. To be paid later at some
Yes.
point. The magical at some point.
Yeah. Right. And I'm going to use intellect, and I'm going to use a D8 in what did we just say? Fast talking. Yep.
Yep.
You've got to use a bit too punchy though, surely, as a hindrance.
Well, I was thinking that. Yeah, and
You're going to fight your way out of this.
no, but I'm thinking it's like the way I'm doing it is I'm going to. Can I also? I want to throw in my mob enforcer asset and just be like loudly dropping the fact that I have mob connections.
Okay.
That seems
Like, oh, my
very
friend
bad.
such and such, he's and he comes in here regularly too, and
Yeah, so it's like, oh, well, I was just in here last week with
with Harry. I was in here last week with Harry, and you didn't pester me then for it. Why are you getting on my case now? I'm good for
yeah,
it.
we didn't pester you then for it because Harry.
Yeah, me and Harry are in here all the time. Harry's a great guy. You like Harry, right?
Yeah, Harry.
Is that Harry the Hammer?
Yeah, probably. So he's a D6, if that's okay for me to add that in, like,
Yeah, sure.
that's it. Even though he's not actually technically here.
No, because
his reputation
it's not
is being
it's not the physical person next to you.
No,
it's
but his
it's
reputation.
the connection to them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm stacking as much as I can, being a bad role player, as Mike said a minute ago, trying to game the system, because he's given me a difficulty of thinking 11.
Stack
So,
it.
Okay. And by rights, you wouldn't know that you've rolled a 1 on your being a regular dice, right? Although we've seen that.
I
right?
don't know that yet. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we're more in the moment, maybe it'll be possible, but you can actually set up 2 windows with these dice things in, and then press one and then press the other.
Better. I think it would probably be better to roll the extra dice after the main dice.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
That was probably the best way of doing it. But anyway, so I've spent the plot points to get your doom dice, which then failed me. But I'll be getting one back because I'm doing a bit too punchy as a negative.
Okay.
So I'm not going to change.
So you're kind
cards.
of using the threat of violence as a
yeah,
potential,
as
and you're not sure that's
actually
helping.
And it's not really helping me because I'm in this instance. The threat I'm using is Harry, and Harry isn't here. So my connections and my punchiness isn't necessarily what's threatening them, whereas the asset of Harry is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
fairly good, but
what we see here is a failure.
Failure. Yeah. Okay. So spend the plot point you used to get the regular, but you get one back because you used hinder. Right?
Yes.
I'm also going to deal you out another one for the D6 that you rolled as.
Because he's going to take it
one
back off me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll put that back in the pool. But,
so that means I've got 2, right?
So you currently have two cards. Yes. The
which is
maximum
not enough.
total that you can get at the minute
is 9.
Is 5, and then yes, you can add 2 more dice to get to 9, and that's still going to be a failure. So it's not worth your while spending the plot points to increase your dice total. You have rolled a 5. You have lost.
I have lost. I have failed.
Yeah.
I'm going to get thrown out in the gutter.
You're gonna have to
you
pay your bar tab.
You're going to have to pay your bar tab. Because what you wanted here was to not pay your bar tab, and they want you to. So you are having to fork out cash you otherwise could not afford. Right?
Yeah. So I'm going to have a monetary stress.
Yes.
Or something along those lines, aren't
I will add to yours because you used a certain name. You dropped a name when you were doing this. I'll step up your mob attention stress.
Stop
or
using,
you can
stop
choose
this to pay your bill.
or you can choose police attention stress, because the gets a bit too punchy is how you got out of the bar without paying.
I think police attention stress is a good one, because I think this probably, I think one of the reasons why this hasn't worked so well is because there are some police in the bar at the time that I tried to pull this off.
Okay.
And,
right.
me mentioning my mob connections out loud has given the police something to think about. Yeah.
Okay. So if you add that to your character sheet.
Oh yeah. Okay. So what am I actually adding? What stress level?
So at the bottom of your character sheet, if you're on the edit mode, you can go to police attention, and then the bar underneath says no stress. Move that. We ignore D4 stress.
Yep.
And go straight to D6.
D6, right? Okay.
D6
that's what I wasn't sure what it jumped to. Yeah. Okay. Oh no, that's not my stress exposure. Hang on, that was on the wrong one. You said the one underneath. Hang on.
Hey? My apologies.
Will you let me do it, please?
Okay. Yes, I had a different view to you. I apologize.
There we go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So Dave's character now has 6 stress, because the police are paying attention. And if that continues to grow, if you do other things that are going to piss off, annoy, or otherwise break the law, then that's going to climb and climb and climb until there are actively police officers seeking down to warrant with a warrant for your arrest.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, exactly. So another outcome from that could be, if you wanted to play more into the bit punchy and the fight scene, you could have ended up with physical injuries. Like I said, you could have had that as mob injuries. I don't think this was going to go into actual mythos exposure, as no matter how blind drunk you get, unless it's absinthe, that's probably not going to be a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a scene with Dave. There's always absinthe. And I believe that leaves us with Nat. Now, I was trying to work out what scene we could have with Nat. I wanted to give Helen the opportunity to maybe come up with something if she wants. I've got something in my pocket if not. But what challenges Nat on a almost daily basis?
I don't know.
If sorry, not Helen. Sorry, Corinne.
Yeah, I was gonna say. It's not Helen.
Sorry. Helen was highlighted in green as I said that, so I was like, got my attention. Corinne.
Yes. No, I don't have anything in particular in mind. So if you had something, please.
Okay. So you make a habit of hanging around at the news pen, bothering the staff, trying to get stories that you can investigate or errands that you can run, other than just a coffee or bagel run for the lunchtime rush. Can you manage to find somewhere to sit, stay, somebody to chat to, some way to do this without winding everybody up and getting thrown out?
Oh, yes.
Are you just a little too chirpy for these jaded and weary reporters?
Yes.
Is your youthful exuberance just too much? I'm not trying to say anything about how annoying your character is, but because we've been going through this step by step on the difficulty charts, you're getting the absolute hardest difficulty setting, which is 2d12.
Yay.
And I said I was saving that d8 for a reason. You are that reason. So I'm going to spend a d8 and a d6 from the Doom pool. So the Doom pool currently looks like this, and the difficulty should look like that. So I've got an 8 on my d12, and I have on one of the d12s. I'll take the 4 from the d6, making a total of 12 as your target. And if I was looking for an effect dice, that leaves me a d12 as an effect dice. I'm only setting the difficulty, so I don't get an effect dice in this instance. But that's what you're aiming for. You've got a beta 12 to stay in a comfortably not annoying zone in the bullpen.
Okay, so I'm trying to not be annoying. Okay. Main skill. Probably intellect. Yeah, the other ones don't really fit with like talking.
Again, willpower, because you're trying to control your mood, your enthusiasm, or your expressiveness. So it could be you're trying to maintain control and be all grown up and mature enough. To put into context roughly how young this character has been played in the past, it's often been late teens, and therefore your unique stress track is adult supervision, as in you're trying not to have people rule over your life just because they're older than you.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Let's go for. I'd rather go with intelligence though, because my willpower is currently at 6, which, with the dice pool I'm up against, seems like a really bad idea. Yeah, it's still like trying to, rather than she's trying to impress people, so like trying to impress with intelligence.
Okay, yeah. She's trying to
then,
seem smart.
Yeah. Specialty, I have a D8 with charm.
Sure.
My distinction, help, because I'm trying to impress.
Yeah. You do have a contact in the bullpen in
yes.
Craig.
Yes, a D8 asset there. Cool. Does my target
there's
have
nobody
any
to
stress?
Yeah, so you're not rolling against a specific person, so there's nobody specific that has any stress that you can use.
Okay. Well,
so one thing, just while Corinne hits the button, obviously if you're working together against a character or one of the NPCs across the length of a session, if you're adding stress to that character, the next person that's rolling against them knows that that stress is there, will be able to add that stress into their dice pool. So it's a way of actually improving things for other people to actually have an effect. So even if you're not good at fighting, if Dave, for instance, is good at fighting, he's a bit punchy, does some physical damage to somebody, the next person in the combat round can pick on the same guy and say, but that guy's got that bum leg that Dave just kicked out from under him. I'll use that in my dice pool to make me better, have a better chance to kick him while he's down, depending on whether or not that's your kind of character or not. Anyway, let's take a look at how you rolled, because that looks pretty good.
Pretty good.
Taking your intelligence and the fact that you're trying to impress everybody, that gives you a 15, which is sufficient.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That I will go for the 8 and 7 for 15.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
and
they had rolled 12, so that's only 3 points higher.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
If you spend,
yeah. Go on.
But that's enough.
What were you going to
If
say?
you spend a plot point, you can add a third dice to your result, which will give you a heroic success, because you'll then be 5 or higher than the target number of 12.
Sure. Let's do that.
Sure. So discard and delete your plot point card.
Yeah.
And that leaves you a D8 as your effect, which you then step up to a D10. So you have a D10 asset or stress that you can apply to the situation. We're moving on from your exercise in rules development here, but why don't you tell us a little bit about how that scene goes, Corinne? How does Nat manage to ingratiate herself to the staff at the newspaper, other than donuts?
So she actually, because I chose intelligence, so she actually manages to talk to someone and show that she is not just a coffee grabber and annoying, that she actually knows what she's talking about. So someone's like, oh, like she looks over, like glances someone's sheet they have, and she's like, oh, well, if you look at this clearly means this, and they're like, oh, I didn't see that, or something like that.
Fantastic. You bring out the details and the story that they're looking at. You make connections that they hadn't seen. And generally, you show that you know not just what it is to be in this space, but also the history of the paper and some of the stories that have been run before.
Yeah.
And you've got that background knowledge, and you exemplify that in a way that possibly makes some of them feel like their jobs are under threat, but that goes by the by. So that's standard tests. A difficulty is set, you roll against it, you're trying to achieve a simple, I succeeded at this thing. But what if there's somebody facing off against you and trying to stop you achieving that? So this would be either PC versus PC, PC versus NPC villain, or otherwise. And this time, rather than rolling against simple difficulty dice and any dice I happen to have lying around, you're going to be rolling against some character that has a stake or interest in what's happening. So I was going to go with the villain wants to destroy a priceless artifact, and you want to save it. Now, our first person in and who hasn't acted since was Robin, so we'll come back to Helen. Helen, somebody's trying to destroy a priceless artifact. Now, I don't quite know why that's necessarily come to you or your attention, but you're going to try and save this artifact from destruction. And this is going to be a contest where the dice are rolled, and then you try to beat what they're doing, and then they will try and take an action to continue to take the action back and forth until one of you cannot raise the stakes any further or chooses not to try.
Okay.
So what happens
Can
is...
I call on a friend to help me for this, please?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Who would you like to call on?
I would like to call on the plucky reporter that has come to the auction house. I'm guessing I'm at the auction house. I'm going with this.
This is not necessarily part of the plot, but it's helping us to define things.
So I'm at the auction house watching my brother's paintings be sold. While I was running around backstage, I bumped into the plucky cub reporter, who is here for the story, or some sort of story. And we see somebody trying to destroy an artifact. So, take me from there.
Well, me.
Okay.
Or
Corinne.
Yes. Someone trying to destroy an artifact.
Corinne, what form of art is this? Sculpture, painting, historical relevance?
It'd be some sort of probably a smaller item, maybe like an ancient knife, or like something that is about this size that they're trying to grab or destroy.
Okay,
whatever.
And they're going to break it here in the exhibit and then flee. I'm going to make it so that it's action happening here in the scene. So you see them basically about to smash it with a hammer. Okay. And between the two of you, you're going to try and stop this. Now, one of you will take the active role and describe an action you are going to take to stop this vandalism. And then you are going to, instead of me rolling to set the difficulty, you are going to set the difficulty as the beginning roll. So you'll put together a dice pool and roll it saying, I am stopping the destruction of this artifact, for instance. So I pitched this at Helen, but Helen's brought Corinne in. I'm happy with that. So one of you, currently Corinne's box has got green around the edge, so I'm going to go with that. Would you put together...
Agility? What's your agility?
My agility is 8.
So is mine. What's your strength?
8.
You should definitely do it.
Okay.
Most of my stuff is 8. I have nothing at 12.
Yes, you've got a more spread out range of dice. Others have got a more specialized range of dice.
Yeah.
That's your youth
I will
showing through.
try and essentially run up and just before he can when he starts bringing his arm back, I want to, before he goes forward with it, I want to grab it and be like, hey, you can't do that.
Okay, so this sounds like snatch and run, basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well,
okay.
Yeah. Just holding so he doesn't
okay.
grab it.
So, pull together your dice pool to set the difficulty. If you want Helen's assist, as in you could maybe hand the blade off to Helen,
Yes.
what we can do is you make the initial roll to get the knife away. If they raise the stakes and you feel you can't beat them, Helen has an opportunity to come in and try instead.
Okay.
Okay. It will cost a plot point for somebody else to interfere. That runs for both of us. So if I wanted to bring a character in that wasn't involved, I'd pay Corinne a plot point to bring my character in. If Helen wants to, she's effectively paying the mobsters that are doing this a plot point so that they can get somebody else involved. Okay. So Corinne, you're setting the difficulty. Your last roll was attempt not to be annoying.
Yes.
This one will be to snatch the artifact away, I guess. Would you like to create a specialty on one of your open slots? You could have nimble fingers, you could have run, sprint, dodge. I'm thinking these are all very physical things that could assist, but you may have other ideas too.
Well, dodge. I think so. I'll use agility, I guess, for this because
Agility.
And then
what size dice do you want to give to your dodge specialty? Would you like that to be
I think
8 that you have remaining?
Yeah, D8 because
Okay.
I actually have.
That's your last D8 in specialties. The others are all going to be D6s.
Yeah.
So while you're adding that to your dice roller, I'll add that to your character sheet.
Yeah. Any of my distinctions? What School of Hard Knocks? What does that mean?
Well, it's a very narratively broad topic. You've been through a lot of hard situations in your life, and they've prepared you for the things that challenge you today. But they may have also left you with some scarring or emotional baggage.
Well, this sounds like something that would help with.
Okay, that sounds good. So you get your D8 for that.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing that you have an asset that helps in this instance.
No,
unless
I don't
you
think
brought the urchins
my
in with
contact urchins or my contact reporter helps. So no.
No, unless Craig happens to be here at the event.
I mean, I probably would be, but I don't think he's on the back here because he probably wouldn't let me go on my own to here.
Okay.
But he's probably not.
Then I'm afraid you probably have to say no to the asset unless you spend a plot point to create an asset.
Does the target have any stress?
Again, we haven't applied anything to them yet, so I'm going to go no.
Okay. How do I do?
Ooh, not bad, not bad. Definitely go for an 8, yeah.
Yeah, 8.
Okay, so you would select what are your 2 dice that you're keeping for your
they're all D8s, so I'll 2 to 5 and 3, and I'll have 3 left.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry. Yes, true. Yeah. Your option could be you could go for 6 to start with if you had got different dice values, but you're right. They are all D8 in this instance. So yeah, you've got an 8. So let me pull up who you're fighting against. We'll have some goons. So I'm going to roll a couple of goon dice.
Goon dice. Well, it's not a very hard one to beat, so I'm surprised if they don't beat it.
What, 8? 8's not bad. Yeah. Bearing in mind, we've had, some 1s already. And it depends what abilities they've got, presumably.
And your target currently is 8.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and your
Do you need
effect
to
dice
meet
is
it or
awesome.
beat it, by the way?
So you have to beat.
Beat.
Got to beat it. So currently, to break the dagger, the current result is 8, and I have a D8 effect dice to face up against. I will then roll the goons, and they have matched your total. So they did not manage to get it.
Yeah.
So if I had beaten yours, you'd have to come back and roll against that again to narrate how you're getting the dagger away from them.
Yeah.
But because your result hasn't been beaten, they lose. You get the outcome you want, and your effect dice goes on them as stress.
Nice. So they have a D8
Okay.
stress die now.
Yes.
D8
Now,
stress.
because these are a mob rather than an individual character, each dice in this represents how effective the mob is. Not necessarily how many there are in it, but how many of them are working together, or the collective group. Your D8 is bigger than any of these dice, so it's big enough to knock out one of the dice. So
Cool.
on my character sheet for the mob, I would delete one of the dice rather than actually adding a stress in this instance, because it's a mob. You've knocked out a significant portion of the mob. Basically, you've halved the mob, making them almost ineffective. But you could define a stress. You could define an asset using that dice instead. You could say, you've got the dagger, for instance. You have a dagger in hand.
Okay. So,
Right.
yeah, so, but that would not make, that would essentially not, that would...
leave the mob intact as 2d6.
Yeah. Well, what do we think is better?
Okay, so in this instance,
security guard is a D8 or something along those lines.
Yeah, you could create an asset of a security guard that you could flag and get involved. You could use that. Yeah, good suggestion.
Well, I think getting the dagger is probably like the first, because it was, well, wasn't my thing to snatch the dagger anyway? That was the intent.
So you've succeeded in, so the question here is, when you assign something a dice, you're effectively making it important to the story. So you can then use that dice to improve your next roll. So everybody could say, I'm going into the fight with a club in my hand. But unless you want to make the club an asset, you don't get an extra dice for just having a club in your hand when you go into a fight. It's just, I'm swinging a club around. Narratively speaking, there's a club involved in the fight. When you give it a dice, it becomes important enough that it actually matters that you've got that club in hand. Okay. Now you're rolling that dice in your dice pool. So if you've got the dagger, then, you have the dagger. What's important about that? Well, okay, everybody wants the dagger, apparently, right? Who has the dagger is important. At the end of the scenario, who has the dagger, you could sell the dagger. You could stop the ritual sacrifice. You could keep it intact so that you can do the ritual sacrifice, whatever that is, right?
Yeah. Sure, I'll have the dagger. Sure.
Yeah,
I have a knife.
Okay, so on your character sheet, we'll say you've now got an extra asset. And it's a D8 dagger. And there we go.
So now,
appearing on your character sheet.
If I wanted to go, oh, well done. We need like to get someone to like come and deal with these guys type thing.
Yeah.
And I do a shout for help. Help me. Does that then play on into the scene?
Sure. So the next thing I wanted to do is actually turn this into a party action, which is kind of similar again, right? That you will be chased out by the goons. The goons are going to hunt you down and try and get the dagger off of you. So we cut to a scene, maybe, or a camera shot where you're now fleeing through some alleyways, streets, stereotypical market stalls all around you, that kind of thing, right? And narratively, we'll now run a chase scene between you. You pick who is going to be the lead character for this, and they will lead the chase. If they stumble or otherwise fail to raise the stakes, somebody can step in and try and continue and take charge, or people can take an action to create an asset that will help the lead character. So you can say, okay, Corinne's the lead character that's trying to get away from the goons. We're going to run interference. So Helen says, I'll do an action that's going to create some distraction that stops the goons, or I'm going to drive up in a car that I have to get us away from here, right? And that creates an asset that Corinne can then include in her role so that she can have a better chance of beating the challenge on the next roll. So you all will be able to take actions in this scene, but only one of you is attempting to win the chase. See where I mean with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do the same again, but I'm going to put a lot more goons into this. And again, Corinne, you are trying to run. So you'll be setting the initial stakes as you are running away from the mob.
Cool.
And I'm putting in, I'll put in, because we discovered that if I put in more than 5 dice at the minute, the dice roller has a bit of a glitch. I'll put in 5 dice.
What a shame.
We tried it on edge.
I'll have, I'm sure on edge it works fine, Dave, but I'm not on edge. I'm quite relaxed.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm going to use that joke a lot. I'm sorry.
Okay, agility. I am dodging as well. So I'm running away.
Yeah, definitely.
My School of Hard Knocks probably helps as I'm running away. Do I have a relevant asset? Yes, I have my dagger.
Yep, you have the important thing that you are actually trying to get away with.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. And my target does not have any stress because I made a dagger instead. What did I get?
Oh.
Oof.
Good target, though. You're trying to get to 10.
Yeah.
But I'll be buying those 2 dice off of you.
Thank you for the 2 plot points then.
Yeah. I'll pass those over to you.
Thank you.
Okay, so
so
I've
even
left
though
the effect dice.
sorry, so even though the Corinne rolled 1, those effect dice still even and you bought them.
I've left the effect dice in by mistake from the previous one. So the effect dice. Let me rephrase that. The effect dice is a 4 because she doesn't have a dice. It gives her a free D4 as an effect dice. So if they can't beat it, you'll have a D4 in total.
Right.
Now I can choose to not try and compete. Mm-hmm. If I do, then I get to tell the story of how I lose you in the chase.
Yeah.
That's going to be a bit dull though. So I'm going to try and beat it. Okay. So at any point you are involved in one of these challenges, one of these contests, you have the right to say, no, I don't want to run the risk of rolling and failing. I'm going to try and just describe how I fail. So they catch me. I drop the dagger and keep running. They stop and pick up the dagger, right? You have that freedom to describe that, Corinne, if you choose not to pay the cost of making the dice roll. Because if you roll the dice and fail, you get stress. If you give in, you get a plot point as a reward, but you don't get what you wanted out of it.
Okay.
And you have to tell me how bad it goes for you. Anyway, that's where that goes. I'm going to roll these dice first, though. Okay, so I'm very happy with those. I've got a 12 and an effect dice of 6.
6, yeah.
So to continue to escape with the dagger, you will have to beat a 12 target. So this is where somebody else can step in. Sorry?
So can Helen help now?
Yeah, so this is where somebody else in the party could step in to create you an asset to help you get away.
Okay.
Can't they do a check as well?
So for Helen to create an asset, she tells me what she's trying to do. I set a difficulty and she rolls against it. That produces the effect dice if she beats the difficulty, and she gives you that dice in your next dice roll.
Ooh, okay. So I am going to try and get some help from oh look, I'm passing by this bar where this maybe slightly inebriated person is having an argument with somebody behind the bar. I'm going to pop my head in and look like a little lady in distress here.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I am going to use... Now, what is vitality exactly?
It's how healthy you are, it's stamina, health, recovery, all these kinds of things. It could lean into looks, it could lead into the physical aspects of attraction as well. but it's generally those areas. It's your bodily health.
Okay, and willpower?
Your ability to control yourself, to apply your will on others, to have shows of willpower. If you had a Green Lantern power ring, you'd use willpower to fuel that.
Really helpful in
Well,
a
if we were
mythos
playing if we were
game
playing
based
DC
in
superheroes.
1930 San Francisco. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for
Thank
that.
you.
There was a
That's-
Green Lantern in the 30s.
Yeah,
Alan
but that
Scott.
doesn't help me.
Scott Allen.
Doesn't help me. So what you're saying is
hasn't helped
willpower is
anybody
just
yet
my
either.
determination and resilience,
Sure,
effectively.
yeah.
Right. Okay. I'm going to use my willpower because I'm bloody determined. Do I have a relevant specialty? No, but that's okay. Coping mechanism. I am going. Ooh. If I. No, I will go with fragile but fierce and go for help, I think.
Okay.
And then my asset is obviously going to be my charisma again.
Okay. We'll get the
now,
difficulty up for you as well.
Thank you. And my target presumably doesn't have any stress. Dave hasn't taken
Yes,
any
because
stress.
you're not rolling against a person that has stress.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I do
One
have
second.
stress. If she's picking me, because that's the point, she's picking me. I have a
Yeah.
D6 in police
Yeah.
activity, but whether that helps
If
you.
you're going to resist helping, then yes.
Oh, well, I mean,
Uh,
on the one hand, I should just relent, but on the other hand, why shouldn't I get more stress? I mean,
Yeah.
So, what I might suggest is that the outcome of this might not just be you get help from Dave. You could end up pulling in help from other patrons in the bar.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I
So I'm going to make
prematurely
this
rolled.
challenging. I'm going to make this challenging. I am not going to add any extra dice to that.
Yeah.
I'll just make the difficulty. Oh, you've already rolled. Okay. Well, by rights,
Yeah.
you would have seen the result.
Yeah, that's fine.
From this. So you're looking to beat an 11 and you have an 11.
Now, can I use my plot point? So, can I use my plot point to augment something?
You can use plot points to keep an extra dice in your result, but you've unfortunately only got one of the dice there and it's a 1. So you can't use ones because they're hitches that don't count. So the guys inside the bar listen to your pleas for assistance, but they are not convinced that they should stop drinking to come and help you face the mob.
Right.
Leaving Corinne with no assistance. But there are still 2 other characters that could step in before we go back to Corinne's step in the initiative as such. And they could try their hand at creating something out as an asset.
So I might not have got the rest of the bar, but what about?
Well, you came in, and Dave's character Eugene is now aware of the situation, and he could make a choice to come out and do something.
I think we're behind them, aren't they? They've run down the street, or are they coming down the street? Like, is Helen ahead?
There's room within the narrative for you to define that, Dave. It's not something I'm setting up here.
Then I will say that I'm not exactly in the bar. I was leaving, having no money since I've had to pay my tab. I couldn't really get a drink, so I'm looking to mooch around and see if I can find some other way of getting some alcohol. And I accidentally walk in front of the mob, and one of them barrels directly into me, knocking me down.
Okay.
Yeah, so the 2 of us are like on the street, and that's where my interaction will come in. Sort of like,
okay,
I've accidentally got in their way.
You're not specifically leading Corinne to escape. You're not joining in the run. You're going to try and produce an obstacle that they are going to struggle to get past. Okay. Yeah. So how big of an obstacle you can become is the test. You being difficult, I don't think is going to be that big a challenge. I think Dave can, I think Eugene can be difficult. So I'm going to set the difficulty to do 2d6. And I will roll that now.
Okay.
It's a still target of 9.
Okay. Right, so I think I'm going to use my strength, but I would like to define another specialty, if that's okay, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to define a D8 as put your dukes up.
Ooh.
So specialties are more skill specific. I like put your dukes up as a bit of flavour there. Can we go with something
It is basically fisticuffs.
Yeah,
I'm just calling
happy
it.
with that.
I'm just calling it put your dukes up because it's appropriate for the era. Yep.
Yeah. I'm aware. Yes. We just have a look at. Yes, I'm aware of the limitations of the column widths on my character sheets, but that seems to work okay for me.
It works.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Obviously, we're going to add in a bit too punchy to this. Yeah.
Sure.
And yeah, so I've just walked out and got into a physical altercation with some complete. In fact, I'm going to put a bit too punchy in as a hindrance, because although it's definitely a fight that I'm now going to be getting into, I don't see it in a positive way. I see it as like he's come out here, he's got a bit of an issue because he's got no money, and this altercation is just a perfect opportunity for him to let off some steam, but it's not a good idea for him to let off steam in this way. So
I've dealt you another plot point for taking that as a hindrance.
Okay. So yeah, I'll put that as what should we say? Create an obstacle. Yeah. Like, get in the way. Trying to get in the way. So I'm going to use strength. I'm going to use D8 from fighting effective, the hindrance, and I don't have any assets other than that to add. So let's go. And I've got nothing else going on, have I?
No, I think that's all you need.
I think that's everything. I do have stress. Oh no, he doesn't have any stress.
No.
Okay.
In this instance, you're rolling just to see if you can be awkward.
Yes.
Yay.
They have a 9, you have a 10.
Yep.
And a D8.
And a D8
as your effect. So the effect becomes
they're only
your
D6s, aren't they? So
you're not taking them out. You're giving Corinne the chance to escape, and you're passing her the D8 asset, so she can roll that in addition to the other things that she's rolling in her dice pool. So if we get a refresher on where we stand with the,
I'm basically the apple cart that they've had to drive through.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah. Dave is the apple cart for tonight's show. So to escape with the dagger, you're currently looking to beat a 12, and there's a D6 effect dice.
Hang on, if this is going to
stress.
Corinne, Mike, can I spend a pop point to upgrade it to a 10?
Yes. So you can spend plot points to step up things like this. So it becomes a D10 asset that you're passing to Corinne. Again, this is a very specific instance of an asset. Dave's not going to be an obstacle for the rest of the night.
No, but hopefully that will represent her getting a chance to, like, they've got to pick themselves up from tripping over me, and that gives her an opportunity to put some distance or something. Yeah.
Corinne, when it comes down to the assets section, you'll be able to add in the D8. You've also got the D6 of the blade as well, which is narratively what everyone's chasing after. So feel free to include that. When it comes to choosing assets on your chart, you only pick one on the first roll through. So use the additional dice button afterwards to add in the D8 as well. So pick the knife as the asset on your first pass through when you're creating a dice pool. Add in Dave's D8 as an extra dice.
You
D10,
need
I've
D10.
upgraded it.
Oh, sorry, D10. D10, yes. So with all that in your mind, you still have the option to not try and escape, to say, no, I'm going to give up now before I roll this and take any stress.
Well,
But I'll leave it to you to decide what you're going to do.
okay. So do I essentially do the same roll? Do I need to roll different skills?
Yeah, I think pretty much, unless you narratively want to change what you're doing. So you might say, switch to using your area knowledge to duck down a street or something. You might use your, because I think you used dodge last time. You could say area knowledge gives you a better layout, and you choose that one, for instance.
Okay, Run away. I'll still use agility, but this time, as you said, I will try to use my area knowledge to take some shortcuts and stuff.
Yeah.
My distinction is still trying helping. Relevant access. Yes, I have a D10 from. Do I get to add 2 then?
So what I'm saying is you add 1 here, and then you use the additional dice button that's back on your character sheet to roll more dice when you finish this form. Because unfortunately, the way that I code this, I can only code 1 dice per section. So I had to create a second button to do additionals. So that's looking pretty good.
And it's a D8. What's it called? Dagger.
A D6, yeah.
It's a D8.
Oh, it was the dagger of D8. Sorry, I lost track. Okay. Yes, it is. I remember it being. So that's a really good roll.
Oh, yeah. 15.
Yeah, 15. Definitely beats the 12.
Yeah, with the D10 effect dice.
And a D10 effect. Okay. Okay, so describe kind of what's happening there. Where are you chasing? Where are you making them chase you? How do they interact with Dave's obstacle?
Yeah, so Dave's obstacle is Dave, isn't it?
Essentially.
Yeah. Dave's obstacle, and Dave will. So I will essentially weave around Dave, and as soon as they're distracted by Dave, I cut into like a different corner. Like I run out of the museum or whatever, and like cut down a corner into an alleyway and like keep going through the alleyways and away. Because I find it hard that they're gonna find me after this. I mean, they can try, but
yeah, I think there's a pretty high roll. I think that what we'll do here is have them choose, well, not well, I'm choosing for them to fail to follow you, right? So this is the point where I'm going to have them quit rather than roll the dice. That also the D10 will do significant reduction of their numbers. So they're scattering through different back alleyways trying to find you. One of them thinks they see you duck down the wrong alleyway, and that's it. From then on, they're just chasing down the wrong streets and they disappear off camera. It takes you a few minutes to realize that in actual fact you're safe. You stop gasping, turn a corner, and that's where you see Dave leaning against the wall, just basically going, "Anybody giving you trouble?" You know, that kind of thing. And that's where we bring the group back together. So that's group activities led by a specific character. There will also be combats where you're all acting against mobs like that. And we'll run those as an example, well, not as an example, as part of the plot when that comes up. Things that I could have been doing to make things more difficult for you: spending dice from the Doom pool to increase the mob's dice. So the mob there were all D6. So if I spend a D6 or higher, I can just add more dice to the mob, making it a larger pool for me to draw from. But I didn't, because the dice pool roll can't go higher than 5 at the minute, and I need to fix that. So that'll be my task between now and next Tuesday. But also, if you're acting as a group against it, each of you chooses who goes next. So Corinne would take the first action, for instance, in this instance. She'd pass control to Helen. Helen may then choose who's next. Could be JD, etc. But at any point, I can spend a dice from the Doom pool to give the NPCs an extra action between yours. All I have to do is match the highest dice on your character sheet, which on most of you is a D10. Well, all of you is a D10, basically. You've all got a D10 speciality. So I spend a D10 out of my dice pool if I've got one to get extra actions for the bad guys. So another reason why having dice in the doom pool is bad, especially bigger dice. Another thing I can do is with 2d12, I can end the scene in my favor. This is used to let the bad guys escape effectively. So you guys are winning and the big bad evil dude has to have an escape route. I blow 2d12 out of my dice pool, and that gets me narrative control of them escaping the scene without you actually being able to defeat them this time. Live to fight another day. Anytime I spend a d12 out of the doom pool, you gain an extra plot point each. So anybody in that scene gets a plot point because I'm spending the big guns. Okay. Because of the time, I'm going to skip running an example of one of those attacks. That's what I'm basically trying to say. And I'm going to run through to the last thing on my checklist, which is a mythos check. So I think it's a good time to do that because looking at this, we've got people in the scene with 3 plot points. Basically, difficulty steps up every time you have plot points. Basically, if you've got more than 5, Dave, don't worry, because 5 is basically the top out level. If you've got 5, I'm putting you up against 2.
No, I only have 2 now because I spent 1. Oh well.
No, it's okay because Spider's got 3.
Yeah.
So
well done, Spider.
all of you together, and you've just witnessed what this sacrificial blade does. It's so scary. Corinne's left camera she's petrified. So what we'll do, Dave, you are highlighted in green on my Zoom screen, so we're going to go with you first. But what I'll do is I set the difficulty for you.
Okay.
As soon as I can get there up, free up my screen. So 1, 2, 3, a challenging difficulty for you.
Okay, so to be
You're
clear,
looking to resist the mythos influence that's in this scene. Now, I'm not giving away the actual plot for the story that we're going to be running. All the things we've done today have been non-plot related. They've defined something about your character. Maybe some of the details, like your bar tab, may remain. But I'll wipe out all the related stress, reset everybody's character sheets to what we were before, keeping the new skills.
I think I'll have all my skills filled in by the end of this.
yeah. So the blade that Corinne has brought to you as a group, you've all been like, oh my Lord, I can't believe you've just been through this harrowing experience. What was it all about? Oh, this perfectly innocent looking blade, she says, putting it on the table, and it starts spinning and eldritch things crawl all over. And you're all like, oh, wibbly. Right. I promise to be slightly more descriptive of my horror elements when it's on plot. So faced with this scary experience, your character now needs to find a way to deal with what it's just seen. And that's where coping mechanisms come in important. But if you have, maybe you're using your intellect to realize that this can't be what it seems to be. Maybe your willpower just to hold yourself together. Maybe you were fast enough to look away from the scary thing, so your agility, etc. Maybe your vitality is one of you're made of sterner stuff, and your stomach isn't turned by something so much as other people at the table might be. So all of your traits could work towards this. Pick the attribute, a speciality should you have something that is useful. Your coping mechanism, how you center yourself when you're faced with things that you're not familiar with. And I'll go through this again when it comes to Corinne's turn. We'll make her last so that she can hear what everyone else is doing. Dave's up first, trying to resist the influence of the mythos, currently set for Dave to 12 points of difficulty.
So I am going to stand up and ignore my fear, and whatever this gribbly thing is, I'm fairly certain that it can take the old 1-2. So I'm going to stick with a bit too punchy. But this time it's going to help me. Like everything I've ever encountered that has in any way shook me to my bones has been dealt with a solid right hook.
Punch.
But I'm not going to use put your dukes up for this. I'm going to use Moxie which
Okay,
I've just
right,
added.
so you're creating another
to
one
my-
of your
yeah.
specialties.
I've just added in as a D6 because that kid's got moxie, definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's give that a go. I don't think I have any relevant assets here, so I have stress, but I don't think it's relevant. Perfect.
Okay, so I'll be paying you. I'm glad I got a 1 and a 4 at last. I'll be paying you a plot point for that D4, but rather than add it to the Doom pool, I step up a dice in the Doom pool.
No, lovely.
So I take a D6 and I create a D8 instead. And draw yourself a plot point, Dave. This will not count towards the difficulty for other people. I'm not going to be cruel. The difficulty was set before we started to roll against it. So Dave, you have failed to resist the mythos influence, and therefore your character steps up the mythos stress to D6.
Okay. So I think
there
that
will be
the phantom in my head that I thought I was hitting is actually myself tonight.
yes. There are ways that you can spend plot points to shift stress. So, for instance, Dave's just described a way that we could say that this isn't mythos stress, this is physical stress. Yeah. He's physically injured himself whilst fighting this. So you spend a plot point to shift a stress to a different type. It's a way of managing your stress levels. But as it is, we'll bypass that for now. Yeah. There are other things that we can do with plot points. As I say, we'll be looking at those as the game progresses. Okay. So that's Dave. We will work our way around the table from Dave. Currently in this layout, that's Helen. Robin has just watched this perfectly innocent-looking sacrificial dagger do a 360, 720 in the air spin. As it did so, energy arcs out of it, and tendrils of eldritch power, mist-like form, snake down the side of the table and are reaching out towards you to engulf the whole group of you. And you're all really grateful that Corinne brought this into your presence.
Yeah.
So would you care to put together a dice pool to face off against the difficulty? We said this was challenging, so I'll roll the difficulties unique to each character. This time it's only a 6 for you, and I have rolled a 1. So if you spend a plot point, Helen, you'll be able to take that opportunity as possibly. I'll suggest the opportunity that this has created is you weren't even looking at the table at that point, so you have your back to it, and potentially only turn around if anybody catches your attention and makes you look at it.
Nice. Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Oblivious might be the opportunity. Oblivious. So when you've filled in your own dice pool, if there's a slot that you aren't using, feel free to put the D8 in there, and we just won't name it. But if you end up using all the slots on your dice pool builder, then you can also create an extra dice using the extra dice button.
Okay, so I am using willpower as my attribute. Do I have a relevant specialty? Does my art history help at all in that, like, in my head, logically, I'm like, this is just, a piece of art, effectively some sort of sculpture. It's not, a ritual
really
doing dagger.
That. It's not. It's just the light reflecting off of the marsh gases and things.
Yeah. Can I do that?
Okay. I mean, it's a bit of a stretch. It is.
Fine. I don't then. Carry on.
Let me have a look. Have you got any plot points, Helen?
I've just spent the last one to get that.
Oh. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Coping mechanisms: fragile but fierce, looking to blame someone, college activist. Are any of those really helpful?
Well, the first of the distinctions on each character sheet is your default kind of fallback. You are. It's a bit of a rainbow statement. You are fragile but fierce. Your fragility could be a negative. Your fierce attitude can be a bonus. So you can always pretty much apply that to almost anything. That's the ideal with that one. There will be in actual plot scenes, there will be 3 additional assets per location that are location, three additional distinctions that are location distinctions, that you could use
Okay.
those instead. So you'll have more options available to you during actual sessions.
All
But
right.
yeah, for now, if you fall back on the fact that you have ferocity and fragility as defining traits, then I would say one of those two can work.
Yeah. So it would help. And there's no benefit for me at the moment to swap out my coping mechanisms down to a D4.
You get a plot point for doing it. So if you
But
wanted to play into if you want to play into your fragility and say that mentally you're still bereaved and mourning, and your mind still has some elements to deal with that, then yes. So narratively, it's about empowering you to do the role play as well. So we're doing a lot of dice rolling to represent this, but you could role play into that if you wanted to use the negative elements.
Okay, so I don't have a relevant asset from that point of view, but now I'm adding in my D8 I just stole from you. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Cool. All right. Does my target have any stress? No, it's a
no, because again, you're not rolling against the target in this instance. So that question quite often is going to be a no.
Okay.
And you're looking for D6, which you do quite easily. So you do not take. So this is just a chance to resist mythos stress. You have resisted, so you don't gain any mythos stress. And then we move on to the next person. So we're not keeping a dice for your effect. And you have used your thing as a hinder, so you would gain a plot point, which I think you've just taken there.
I have. Thank you.
Okay. Moving around, we have Spider next. So Spider, you've just seen this gribbly thing happen with the sacrificial dagger that Corinne brought to the book club that you belong to. And I'm gonna push you towards using your fixate on the details distinction as a negative, as a hindrance, as you're hypnotically drawn to pay attention to this.
See, I was going to use it as a positive because I can fixate on the patterns because it's brain.
It is very interesting.
It's an interesting thing to look at, meaning I can look at it more from a photography standpoint.
Sure.
So I'm looking at it like what angles are good, how the light reflects off of it, how the wibbly wobbliness of it is interesting shapes.
Sure. I'm paying attention to the mythos elements of this stressful experience, but I think what you're saying is that this is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with it, because what I'm trying to say here is that if your distinction is a negative impact, you get the reward of the plot point, and you're rolling the D4, and you're exposing yourself to more danger. But you're in charge of how these things are interpreted. I'm suggesting, but I'm not forcing you to take the plot point from me in this instance. If I was buying the assets, this is something Helen asked earlier, if I was buying your hitches, your failures, your ones, I'd be paying you a plot point for those, and that you don't get a choice on. I'm offering you a plot point as a temptation to roll the bad dice, and you're saying no, and I'm okay with that. So put together your dice pool. I'll hit you with the difficulty. And again, even better for you, I've rolled a 1 on one of my dice and given you a 5 to beat, which Helen managed to do quite easily last time with a 6. Surely this is even easier.
And I'm going to be using alertness because I'm paying attention. And my relevant speciality is photography, yes?
You are specifying that you're looking at this from the point of view of someone who checks the angles, tries to get the best picture, the best view.
Yeah.
So yes, I'll go with that.
And did you say you want... Is my distinction hinder still or help?
I'm offering you the plot point. You're choosing whether or not you want to go for the hinder or the help.
I don't know what that means.
So your role-playing is assisted by the traits on your character sheet. Do you feel that your attention to detail is going to help you to defend against the influence of the mythos forces that you're facing? Or do you feel it leaves you vulnerable, weak, and exposed to these things affecting your psyche?
I mean, from my perspective, it's helping.
Then go with a D8. It's positive, it's an assistance. It helps.
And
and if you don't already have an asset you wish to put in, feel free to put in the opportunity, the D8 I rolled as an asset.
I put the camera equipment in?
You can use your camera equipment to filter what you're looking at through the lens of your camera.
Yeah,
So you can
take
use
some
that
shots.
as your asset, which means on the stress track, you could put the D8 in that you're willing to buy off of me if you wish.
I shall, because let's
Okay.
face it, I'm going to get ones.
Let's see how it goes.
I pressed submit.
Where did it go?
Oh, wow.
Oh, it turned up. There we are. Pretty good
I
outcome.
did really good this time.
So, I mean, you did describe how you resist. So you're using your camera as a filter kind of thing, and you describe it based on the dice that you've used. But we can see straight away that's beating a 5. I mean, even the 2 lowest dice you've rolled beat a 5. We're not looking for an effect dice because you're just resisting a stress here. So you've passed with flying colours. So it's just down to the culprit of all of this, Corinne, to resist as well.
Yay!
Now, Spider, here's my question. Did you actually not want to get the mythos exposure?
Me?
Yeah, I thought you'd like a bit of mythos exposure in your life.
I mean, Spider does.
This is called role playing. She's playing her character.
Oh yeah, damn role play. Okay, sorry, Corinne, carry on. I'll shut up again.
Yeah. Yes. Now I still have the dagger as an asset. Can I?
Yeah. So by rights,
Oh,
because
thank
the
you for
dagger
the
is the thing.
raid component cost.
By rights, because the dagger is the thing that's causing the mythos. I should have been including the D6 for the dagger in this as well, but I'm trying to keep it fairly straightforward. So in a scene where there's something that clearly is the cause of the mythos exposure, those traits will be brought into the dice roll as well. But I mean, other than the fact that it's been easy since Dave gave it a go, this isn't exactly the simplest of challenges to face.
Okay.
But for Spider, the difficulty has stepped up a bit. No, not Spider, sorry, for Corinne, this difficulty has stepped up quite a bit. As I've managed to max out both of my dice.
16!
Hey, you brought the dagger, you brought the troubles.
Okay, vitality, I guess. So I'm trying to not get stabbed, or am I trying to like resist the mind? The dagger is trying to stab me.
You're resisting the psyche mental effects that could drive you crazy. That's the problem here. The mythos influence will drive you towards insanity. Okay. Anybody that's played Cthulhu before knows that there are 3 general directions that characters tend to go at the end of a Cthulhu mythos adventure. They're arrested, that's your police stress. They are hospitalized or dead, that's your physical injuries stress. And there's the mythos influence, which drives you crazy, and that's committed to an asylum, or gibbering in a corner, or you go on a random killing spree sort of thing.
Or you become the high priest of Nodens.
Yes, those are all valid life choices. All valid life choices are available to those with 12 or higher in mythos stress.
I'm sad I succeeded mine now.
There we are. You see, that's what Helen thought.
Okay, can I use my vitality as I am trying to resist this thing?
So you're made of stern stuff. Your life on the streets has taught you to put up with horror.
Yeah. I can't charm it. Arya, no, doesn't really help. Can I dodge it?
I mean, there are elements of it that are reaching out for the individuals that are in the room. So there's eldritch mists and energies creeping away from the blade towards you. So yeah, there's certainly a physical aspect that you could interact with.
Yeah. Sure, School of Hard Knocks. I've seen this before. I've seen this before, but I've
You've never seen this
things.
before, but as Dave was a bit punchy with it, you can certainly say I've been through some tough shit in my life.
Yeah.
I don't need to.
Yeah. And my dagger asset doesn't help. Because it's time to kill.
You know the dagger better than everybody else. I'm happy for you to say that because you brought the dagger, it's still your asset.
Yeah, cool.
So you've got some sort of connection to the dagger that you feel
calm
reassured
down, dagger.
by.
It is fine.
Okay.
Maybe you're in the eye of the storm because you're still holding the dagger.
Yeah, that's it. You're holding the dagger.
Yeah.
And so
you're the only one
dagger.
that's safe.
Yeah. The dagger doesn't have any stress.
No. Again, you're rolling against the difficulty here, so there's no stress to go against.
Okay, I can use a plot point, can't I, to bring
you
in
can.
another. So, cool. So I will use then a plot point. Please go away. Whatever. How do I click on that? Yes, I'll use a plot point to bring in another dice. So I have 15 plus 7, which is 22.
Yes, which is ample to defeat the 16. Again, we're not looking at you keeping an effect here. It's just to resist stress. So describe, Dave gave you a bit of a verbal cue there to lead from. How is it that you have so easily avoided this mythos exposure?
Well, because I know the dagger. I know it's fine. It's just a dagger. Why are you guys so freaked out? I know it's floating, but it's illusion. Clearly, that drink I had earlier from Dave's character has gotten to my head. I'm not used to drinking. So that's why clearly I'm like, oh, this is I'm having some sort of blurry vision or something. It's clearly not floating. What are you guys talking about?
Okay, and that's kind of how when you're exposed to mythos, we'll track to see whether or not you guys were affected by it. There may be individual instances where you're doing something that puts you face to face with something, or if you're fighting a monster that's truly inhumane on proportions that you cannot comprehend. But usually it will be something during the scene has triggered this, and we'll roll towards the end just before moving through to the next scene. Other than a few bits which we may have skimmed over, I'm fairly happy with what we've covered. We're coming up on 11 o'clock, which is kind of where I was hoping to end. I wanted to just check if anybody had any questions to follow up on, basically.
No, I am working. Okay. No, my question was, so out of that, Nat, Robin, and JD got no mythos exposure, and Eugene did. Yeah. So if Eugene starts babbling about the knife, we just assume he's drunk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you managed to suppress the whole incident to the point where you're not convinced that it really happened. Maybe how you resolve that is down to your individual characters. But Dave can't ignore the fact that happened.
Yeah.
Right. Excuse me. And I have other offers that I can make to Dave. I can start passing him secret notes and saying, okay, Dave, I'll give you a free plot point if you do this. I'll remove that stress and turn it into something else if you do this. Right. So there'll be things going on with Dave's character based on that. And we're going to scribble this anyway, so it's not going to happen just yet, unless it does. Right. But those are things that I'll be doing.
That's my usual plan in Call of Cthulhu. Every book has something you need to know in it.
Yeah,
so read every book.
Yeah, every book.
every book.
Single one.
Out loud in front of everybody.
Especially if there's people listening. Gather round, children.
Especially if they have like weird letters.
Exactly. I wanted to point out a couple of other things that are on the interface away from your character sheet, because I realized that I kind of skipped past and didn't use it before. So you've all got handouts and other things assigned to you as well. Everybody can see the camera equipment that JD is using, basically because I think I said at the start of the session, every game I've run this, somebody's asked me, what kind of camera equipment actually was available in the 1930s? How big is the camera? How mobile is the camera? So I did some digging around this time. I've actually got photos of that available for you to take a look at. There is, like I said, there's a couple of rules handouts which go through some of the things that we've talked about already, but also go into a little bit more detail about what I can do with my Doompool dice. We'll come across those as individual instances when we use them. But I've also added a shared character called Anonymity, which will allow you to pass an unnamed note to the chat, which, considering we're doing horror and gruesome content, is one of the safety tools I wanted to add to the game. So if something's coming up that you're not happy with and you don't want to own up to the fact that you're not happy with it, because I know how squeamish my brother can get, the anonymity tool is there for anybody to make any comment.
Outside of that, I think they'll be okay.
Basically, if I'm picking on my brother too much, anybody can comment about how much I'm picking on my brother.
Except for me.
Yeah. If you do it, we'll know. I'll be like...
But also, if I want to put something into the chat for others to see, so because we're going to be showing the chat through the dice roller on screen, I can also use the anonymity to drop notes in if we need to be as well. So there might be something that if you're not paying attention, you miss, but that's part of it. It also might be something that some of the guys on the chat might see that they can go, oh, we saw that, we know what that was. So that's going to be there for people to be able to leave little pass away comments. And if it's on screen that everybody gets to see. If it's just between us, we'll see it as well. But you can drop those in as whispers as well. So the way to do that, for those that may or may not be as familiar with the Roll20 platform, at the bottom where you're typing in text on the chat bar, there's a as pull down menu. And on there, you can pick your own character name, but you can also pick the anonymity character. And if you pick anonymity on there, anything you paste, even dice rolls, will come up without it showing who did that. Again, it's my way of giving you a safety tool to help filter some of the content that's in the game. I don't think I'm going to be touching anything that should trigger anybody, but I don't know all of your triggers, and I want it to be there available for you to use as a way of feeding back. Other than that, any feedback from the first session, we'll continue to talk after the session ends, but is there anything that you wanted to chip in now? Oh, look, Anonymous knows how to speak gobbledygook. I also recognise that anybody with a clacky keyboard might want to go onto mute before they do type in as Anonymous.
What do you mean? I don't know what you mean. It's still like... I don't know what you mean.
And an anonymous thing appears, and people are like, "What were those days?"
Yeah, have fun with it. Have fun with it. But also,
it doesn't need to be anonymous.
For your
you all hate me. I get it.
Well, not hate, Dave. We just love you enough to know that we can pick on you.
It's fine.
Speak for yourself, Mike. Speak for yourself.
Oh, well, it doesn't
you
take
don't
much
have to
love
produce
to pick
for
on Dave.
him.
Oh no. Well, hopefully I've been a good GM to produce for, because I've still got a very stern picture of Simon looking back at me on this.
No, so stern.
I don't.
Oh,
I have shared it in Discord general chat so people can see how intimidating it is. Yes.
Yes, he does look very. Also, he doesn't have any glasses on. Probably like.
Yeah, that's it. I was trying to work out what it is. That and the whole like Stephen Strange beard thing going on.
Yeah.
But Cask has posted to the game chat as well that the producer knows all and sees all, which is only mildly threatening. Excellent, guys. So thank you, everybody in chat, for watching along. I know that we've gone a little bit deep dive into the rules, and it won't necessarily all have translated on screen. So thanks for sticking with us. Yeah, we'll be continuing the story. We're starting the story proper next Tuesday, streaming again. We're aiming for a 7:30 start, but if we are a little bit late, our apologies. With jobs, etc., it can never be certain that we'll be all on time all the time. So we started just after 8, I think, tonight. So expect us within error margin of about 30 to 35 minutes. We will see you.
That's generous. That's generous.
It's generous. First of all,
to be fair, it's Tuesday nights.
It's also chaotic neutral, so there's usually some sort of technical difficulty.
Sure.
Just before you sign off, Mike, I would like to point out, I'm just going to shamelessly plug now, that on Thursday from 8 p.m. UK time, there will be yet another exciting episode of Cloudgate from Mage Ascension, which is from World of Darkness. And then on Friday, am I going to jinx it again if I say it?
Yeah.
No, it should be fine.
Okay, well, like I said it last week, and then I made Simon ill. So on Friday, reportedly, there should be, if I don't jinx it, another episode of The Benefactor coming to you, which is a D&D 5e homebrew, which is on episode 100
Something.
38.
No, it's
Nine?
more than that, I think.
40. What are we at now, Simon? He'll tell us at some point. And then just maybe, I mean, this really will jinx it, there might be a Numenera next Monday as well, 8 o'clock. Might be.
Might be.
I hear that Mage game is played like it's being run by the third games master in the Hargreaves family. And he's meant to be all right, he is.
Yeah, I mean, it does.
Only chronologically speaking. Only chronologically
it is
speaking, Dave.
Slutty Coke dependent. I'm not gonna lie.
It will be
And if you
entirely
want to
down how drunk I
understand
am
that,
when I start it.
you're tuning on Thursday. Sorry, Mike. Carry on.
To everybody that's been watching, thank you again. For any future view on demand users, could I just ask that you be kind to other view on demand users? Rewind the video when you're finished. And after that, bid you all farewell.
Good night.
All right.